we'll go ahead and get started this evening with the City of Centerton Planning Commission for June 1st, 2021 with a roll call.
Tony Davis.
Here.
Jerry Harris. I don't see Jerry on the list either. So we'll move on. Amber Beal.
Here.
Joey Engel.
Here.
Ben Lewis.
Here.
John Sessoms.
Here.
We're thinking we might take a thumbs up from you, John. Devin Murphy, we are thinking is out tonight. Craig Langford.
Here.
And Jeff Seifert.
And Jeff's here as well. I didn't hear from Jerry, but I threw my notes away from last time as to who was potentially going to miss this evening. So, but we do have enough folks to get started. First thing on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from 5/18 of 21.
I'll make a motion to approve the previous May 18th minutes.
This is Craig. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. There were no admin approvals, no old business. And so we will get on to new business. And the first thing on new business this evening is a public hearing. And this is the Title 14 zoning code amendments, high density residential zoning districts, creating high density residential districts of R3 single family, R3D, R3MF, and high density multifamily residential, also known as R4MF. And I believe that, let's see, Nicole, are you going to cover this or is Lorraine going to cover this? And then once you cover the overview, we'll open it up to the public.
Probably get us started, and Lorraine, please feel free to jump in as needed. So just a reminder, we've been talking about this for a little while now. We received the original directive from council that they wanted us to look at breaking out our R3 district into separate districts, because the way it is currently is that, and I'm sorry, can you all hear me okay? Okay, I've got a little bit of allergies too, so I'll try really hard not to sniffle in the microphone, but excuse me if I do. So anyway, our current R3 district allows single family, duplex, and multifamily. Policy in the recent years has been to ask people to designate which they were planning to request and which requirements they'd be following. However, council wanted to have us put those in districts so that it was a little bit more formal. And so we have gone through our current zoning code and have amended it, and you can see that the proposed changes in red to split out that R3 district into R3 single family, R3 duplex, R3, we're calling this a multiplex residential. It will allow between 3 and 6 dwelling units, and then an R4 multifamily, high density multifamily residential. So the R3 districts are considered medium high density, and then the R4 district would be our high density district for apartments. The single family and duplex districts were relatively simple to pull out of the existing code. We made a couple of revisions to the title. It's called medium high density single family, and then describes the single family specific construction. There was some consideration for height requirements when we threw these revisions with staff a couple weeks ago, and the proposed revision is off to the right, your guys' consideration. This section in particular is regarding assembly uses and conditional use permits like schools, churches, religious education facilities. All those are allowed in these districts but require a conditional use permit, and there's a special height requirement for them. And we wanted to consider in this case that it specify that the height requirement is measured as the vertical distance from the highest adjacent ground elevation to the highest point of the roof line or parapet wall. And then also potentially adding exclusions for things like steeples and things that aren't traditionally part of the height requirement. That was a discussion that came out of staff consideration. And then we just carved out the different requirements specific to the single family and got rid of the other considerations in this district. You can see the same considerations in the set requirements and added the current R3 district does not have a height requirement for the residential structures. As I mentioned before, it was for the conditional use permits for the assembly uses. So we are proposing adding a height requirement. Originally, we just took the height requirement out of our RTH district, and that's what was published. But after following staff comments, the consideration that we'd like you to consider is for a maximum height not to exceed 35 feet, and again measured from the vertical distance from basically the ground level to the highest point of the roof. And we feel that that allows for a reasonable single family home. And then there were a couple of proposed modifications in the accessory structures, and we'd like these to be specific to non-residential accessory structures, both permanent and portable. That's for your consideration. Full of just minor type revision. We also would like to add an exception for pools. Those have traditionally been considered accessory structures, and they follow the accessory structure requirement. But we would like you to consider a 10 distance from the rear. This is specific to the rear setback. They're prohibited in the front, of course, and we'd also like you to consider right now those accessory structures in the side. So in the R3 district, for instance, it's setback. People are allowed to put accessory structures in that 7-foot setback, and we'd like for it to be have to maintain a setback from their property line, side property line, for your consideration again. So similar, I went through all that in the single family, but it's pretty for the duplex, apart from the considerations that are kept there for duplex in particular.
Is everybody hearing Nicole okay? I'm getting a little bit of drag.
Cutting in and
Am
out.
I going in and out?
Yeah.
Does it sound like technical, or can I speak
Yeah,
louder?
it's not your cold.
It's not my cold.
It's technical in some nature.
Okay. Just
Mm.
want to make sure it wasn't just me.
Let me know if it continues. I'm not sure exactly how to help. One moment, let me just check my audio settings. Okay, I'm not sure if that will help, but let me know if you all continue to have trouble. Feel free to interrupt me. Okay, so the same height consideration, the same accessory structure considerations. Okay, so this is we kind of ran into some hurdles in these quick R3 modifications. Our current multifamily requirements are vague and often very difficult for people to meet, which is why most multifamily developments end up with a PUD, because it allows them a little bit of flexibility with the zoning code. In an attempt to address that in a expedited manner, what we're kind of proposing is basically 2 phases. This first phase, in order to get these separations done, kind of we're calling it the bones. We're trying to get the bones in place and then maybe come back with a phase 2 to flesh out what we're trying to do in these, in particular in these multifamily districts. Um, um, and we'll probably talk through that a little bit more in depth, but I wanted to that. So we're proposing 2 different multifamily districts. The first district we're calling the R3 M6, which is a medium high density multiplex district. And it's intended for 1 to 2 structures on a single lot that consists of 3 to 6 attached dwelling units arranged side by side and or stacked, typically with a shared entry from the street. And so these are the types of multifamily structures that would be compatible in a mixed residential area like our downtown. We already have some multifamily multiplexes, if you will, in the downtown area, and they are meant to be designed so that they're relatively compatible with duplexes and single family homes as well. So that is the intent for this district. It's a lower density multifamily district. Similar height requirements. Our proposed minimum lot area is 12,000 square feet for the first 3 dwelling units, plus 3,500 square feet for each additional dwelling unit. Lorene, did you want to say anything in particular on that proposal? I'm not sure that I have notes.
Okay, well,
for that.
on the for the up to 6 dwelling units, and this is where we do need the planning commission's input. We put the 6 in there because the townhomes allow up to 6 combined units. We do have a question on whether allowing the 2 structures on a single lot, unless that would be a development plan, because then you would have that parking requirement that you would, instead of all their own. So that is one question that we do have on this. But the height, as far as for public assembly, I have seen that, like for public assembly, that it's like 40 feet for public assembly. And so, and that part that for that portion of the structure used for assembly or offices, I'm not sure if that is relevant. I think that it needs to be looked at, that will that height work in that zone? And what would be the setback if you do have that height? Would it obscure the view? Is it just, too close that it would just completely overshadow any other residential in that area? And so those are the main things in this. We just determining whether, how many units to go to. That's how we came to it, because whether it's a residential townhome or it was an M6, it would allow for that 6 units, and then it could be determined whether they were going to be on their own lots or all built on one lot. And really when, I don't know. The maximum lot coverage, these are all things that I think need discussion from the planning commission on determining. The 60% lot coverage, I believe that we looked at Rogers on that one. And that was pretty standard on multifamily type. And possibly Juliet, I don't know, you see a lot more than we do. So is there a different number that you would recommend on that?
I think that number is fine for the densities that y'all are proposing.
Okay. Other than that, then it just basically is that we pretty much tried to stay consistent on the accessory buildings and setbacks. And then for multifamily, increased it for the 25 feet from the rear lot line and the 10 feet from the side.
Lorraine, Nicole, I was going to let you get through all the necessary things that you want us to comment on, and then I was going to go back through it and get the feedback from the commissioners, if that's okay, so we can be thinking about it.
Okay, this is, all right, wait a minute. Is this the multifamily high density? This is a new zone that was created. This is for like the apartments so that they have their own unique district. A maximum density, we had it 18 units per acre. And basically the rest was the same, the maximum height of 35 feet. That's for public assembly. But like I said, I've seen 40 on that. Juliet, what have you seen as far as public assembly type churches and so forth?
Yeah, I didn't actually look that up, but I can do some research on that.
Okay.
I think 40 sounds reasonable though.
Okay, I've saw a lot of 30 for residential and 40 for public assembly, is what I had seen. So, but Nicole's writing something here.
I'm sorry, keep going. I was just trying to make
Okay.
notes for the commission as we come back through the questions
Yeah.
that you're bringing up.
Okay. Is this on the units per acre, the maximum density? Okay, and then setback requirements. Okay, that's still on public assembly as we go down and we have the minimum lot area. 2,500 square feet per dwelling unit. So if they have 200 apartments, then they've got, I can't even add, multiply, 50,000, 500,000.
Yeah, that gets us right below the 18 units per acre
50,000
max. It was
square
like
feet.
17.9 or something.
Yeah, we
So
put
that's
it
where
back
that,
into doing that. And instead of doing 2,000 for the two and then so much thereon, it was easier just to do so many per dwelling unit and we can calculate that. Okay, we can go down. The lot width, we left at 100 feet. That's what it was, just took out the other. Oh, actually, it went up to 100 feet. So that it would be a decent size. You don't have just a little piece coming in off of the road. And I think we also kind of looked at that on what was, if you had apartments on both sides, what that measurement was on, didn't we look at watercolor or something? We may need to look at that. Here, I'm gonna have to do.
I'm sorry, Lorraine, were you asking me a question?
Yeah. Okay. Mm. All right, where were we?
Setbacks, or well, you were talking about the 100 feet lot width.
The front lot width. Okay.
Mhm.
I was thinking that we looked at something to determine that we really, if you had two apartment buildings on either side, to try to get um, that distance that we needed. It was 80 feet for the first two dwellings and plus 20 feet for additional. And those only worked if you put apartments, buildings along the whole frontage. If you did a development and you went back, that doesn't work for your lot width. So,
Yeah, and we also looked at other cities' codes, and it was pretty typical for multifamily to just kind of have the 100 feet minimum. That's a minimum. Mhm.
okay. Let's go. Okay, can you scroll down just a little? Oh, wait a minute, I can. Okay, on the okay, on the front setback, these are setback requirements, keeping it was 25 feet from the planning right of way. A master street plan. I thought it was 50 feet though.
For
from the front.
multifamily, it was 50. That's
It
the
was
piece
50.
that's, yeah.
Okay, oh, there we go. Okay, there was there. Now, there may be circumstances where we may want to reduce that. Is, on walkable areas where they have the apartments, closer to a wide sidewalk and, that may be something that they could request. A change depending on where it is. The rear, we have 50 feet. And it used to be set, it was 75. Okay, now on this, my thought was 50 feet and then plus 25 feet for each additional story, each additional floor. So if it's 2-story, then it's 75 feet. Well, actually, I thought we were talking about, I'm looking at the rear setback.
Yeah, but so the way that we handled that was that if they increase the height, which would be increasing stories, they'd have to add 2 feet of setback for every additional foot. So that would equate to, the 2 stories at 35 feet would be 50-foot setback. 3 stories at 45 feet would be 70-foot setback. And 4 stories at
75.
55 feet would be a 90-foot setback. So those notes are kind of off to the right here. But so that it starts as a minimum 50 foot, and then if you go vertical, you have an increased setback. And I think that, yeah, we got that from Rogers code as well.
Okay, so we changed our thinking on that. Maybe we may need to add some clarification on this. This is just the rear or all the way around? It says shall provide on each side of the structure.
Mhm.
Well, and then the accessory structures, well, okay, we'll go back up to the rear. I'm not exactly sure which way. That's something for the planning commission to discuss on how they want to determine the rear and the side if additional is needed, depending on the height. We have a minimum of 15 feet on any one side. So, and if, depending on what's beside there, if there's, if it's more stories, you may want to add to that. The street side is at 50 feet on the planning right of way, and that's what that was before. The minimum, okay. And when we talk to the fire department, the minimum distance between buildings is at least 10 feet. And then it gets into other fire codes. And of course, if they want to do less, they would have to meet fire code regulations on any of this anyway. Height requirements, it says the 25 feet to the eave, but we wanted to remove that. And it says 35 feet to the eave. No. 35 feet from the highest to lowest point, plus 1 additional foot for each additional 2 feet of setback provided, up to 45 feet. Accessory structure, 16 feet was about the tallest, depending on the pitch of the roof. Those, we looked at garages, which were typically less than this. And then if you have a maintenance building, they were typically 14 to 16 feet. Okay, this accepts storage buildings which shall not exceed 10 feet. I believe that was, we were looking at changing that for apartments. Is that right, Nicole?
Yeah, we have it as a question. Should portable storage buildings be allowed in this district? And that's for the
Okay,
planning commission
well,
to consider.
well, this
Or you're
says,
saying
this
increasing
says
it?
just storage buildings. It doesn't say portable.
Mhm.
So if you have like a maintenance storage building,
Yeah. So
then that would,
are you asking? So we have either possibly changing it to 12 feet for storage buildings, or should we even allow for storage buildings based on staff comment?
okay. I thought that we had found that 12 feet was to the typical garage, but storage buildings were typically had more of a roof pitch. So they were typically higher, 14 to 16 feet. And then maximum lot coverage. Because you're building up, that's why this percentage is less. So there should be more open area, more green space. So it's 50% instead of like the 60%. Instead of referring to another chapter, look up the off-street parking. 1.5 spaces for each dwelling unit. That's pretty much what it has come out to. We've looked at other city codes, and even the way that they word it a little bit differently, it basically ends up 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit. Screening requirements. This would be whenever it's adjacent to, other developments, other types of zoning, that it would be required. And then the open space, we also added in here a landscape buffer not less than 10 feet wide along all property lines, so that you don't have like the parking or garages just right up against the property line. There would be that buffer. And that would also coincide If you have garages as an accessory building, you still have that 10-foot. So it really would work nice as a screening for that development. And if they want to do more, that's even better. Open space shall include lawn, shrubs, trees, with or without structure or pavement, and should cover a minimum 25% of the total surface area of the lot. And I do have a question on that because I think we discussed this. It's just been a while. The other 25%, if you have 25% building area, oh, the impervious area is the other 25%, parking and so forth. And then 15%, we really wanted them to focus on what is visible from the road and focus the landscaping in that area. And then accessory structures. And I'm gonna make a suggestion that we put, instead of area requirements, that we put accessory structures first and improvements. I think that's, when you look at area requirements as the heading, I think it makes you think that you're looking back again at what's required for this, but.
Yeah, I think that
Go
was
for it.
my fault. I didn't get that copied over, but the intent is to, and excuse my scrolling,
It's
is
okay.
for it to look like all the other, so it'll say accessory structure requirements,
Yeah.
non-residential, permanent, and portable.
Okay, that's why I thought,
Yeah.
well, I know the old code had it that way and it always was a little difficult.
Mhm.
So we'll get that one changed. And accessory structures, I think of this are the same as what we had mentioned before. Not within 7, in the front, they're prohibited. The rear, 7 feet from the this is 7 feet from the rear property line. This is 10 feet, should be 10. And then, of course, not located in any easements or right of way. And then on the side, the 10 feet on the side property line, which that is the building setback also. So that, and the street side is prohibited. And that's, then do we go into the schedule of uses? Okay, and Nicole, do you want me to go through this or do you want to? I haven't. We basically just added in these, the breakout of the residential districts. And then on, no, my screen's not showing the whole thing. Is everyone else's? There we go. Okay, so then we just went through what was allowed in the R3 and we went across to see whether they should, what we felt, if they should be allowed or conditional or not allowed in each district. So those are something that we'd have to go through one by one to discuss. Are you wanting us to do that now or?
Hey, Lorraine, I'm sorry. I thought we were a little farther along based on the meeting that we had a couple weeks ago. So what I'd like to do is go back up to the top and have some discussion with the commissioners on what you were requesting us to give some input on. And then I think have further discussion because we were going to have this open to the public. And I don't know if we can do that or we should with all the red or how we need to proceed. But let's go ahead and get some our input in regards to the couple of things that you need the planning commission input.
Okay, and then just to clarify, the red is just showing what specifically has changed from the existing code. So that's not necessarily, we don't unless you have questions on it. The notes off to the right are often redundant between the districts, but they came out of staff discussion after this was posted for the public. So we didn't want to make the changes to the document since it was published that way, but wanted it to be clear that staff wanted you to consider this language rather than what was published. So again, I guess for the first point, for the assembly uses and the height, we were talking about 40 feet. And then the language that it's measured as the vertical distance from the highest, and I can zoom in so it's a little bit more legible, from the highest adjacent ground elevation to the highest point of the roof line or parapet wall. Are you guys okay with that language?
Do any of the other commissioners have any problem with the 40 feet height here? Understanding there would be exclusions for the for things like steeples if it was a church assembly. If we don't get any disagreements, 40 feet it is then.
Okay. The next question. Oh, go ahead.
On those changes directed by the commission,
Mhm.
can we put them in a unique color, like, I don't know, purple, pink, green maybe?
Green might not be super visible. How about, is blue okay? Because that's what the cross out does.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Dark blue.
Yes. We can make that happen. Thank you.
And I think for the minutes, what I would like to possibly get is maybe when whatever we agree upon, I may just enter that into the minutes rather than trying to type through all the discussions.
Yes, because most of the zoning, a lot of this is redundant. It will be, if we did the maximum height for the public buildings, public assembly, then it would be changed in the others also. So hopefully a lot of this will be, just one change that is in different places.
Right.
The next note I had, Nicole, was something around accessory, I believe.
Jeff, I had a question on the next page. If you want on, I think it's item 5. I think, yeah, it says 25 feet, but then it says 35 feet in the comments. I was wondering what you're requesting there.
Yeah, so we're proposing, instead of that language, the language off to the right, the maximum height shall not exceed 35 feet. And then with that same definition, measured from the vertical distance
I didn't see it crossed out, so I didn't know which one was, if you're replacing that or going in, it's fine.
Mhm. Yeah, the intent is to replace it.
But
Okay.
this is the single family, correct?
Correct.
I was thinking that this was 30 because I thought we had 25 feet and then we were looking at doing 30 because like Morningside 2 stories were around 25 or 27. We had to kind of check with staff and so forth, see kind of what we had around town to give us something to compare to when we're looking at changing these. When we have a maximum of 2.5 stories, we're wondering what is that other half? What's that half story? And are the stories 8 foot, 10 foot? And that's kind of what other cities have looked at also. So,
But there are some areas in which there may be basements and stuff in which it would get to be pretty tall, right?
well, that's if you look from the highest adjacent grade to the top of that, then that basement area would not factor in.
Okay. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't go to 35 unless any of the other commissioners have an argument as to why we wouldn't.
Okay, in Morningside, this 2-story height is 25 feet to top of roof. Is an example.
That would make
It's a
sense
simple
if
hip.
if you're
roof.
changing that to 2.5 stories though, plus the pitch of the roof. Yeah, I don't think where you can get under 35. If 2.5 stories and you're considering the pitch of the roof too.
I mean, without some kind of maybe architect measurement, I'm struggling a little bit here, but I don't think, I mean, I'm with John. I don't think you can get to 25 feet if you're at 2.5 stories. I mean, 2 stories alone, plus the roof, you're going to be,
Well, okay, when we're talking the half
It'd be pretty
story.
flat. Yeah.
All right, well, so what I'm saying, the 2 stories out at Morningside Development, Keller Road and Seba. There's 2-story homes out there. Those are 25 feet with a simple hip roof. So if you did, a very steep pitch, that's another 5 foot with a 35, and you're looking at a high density.
but you're also adding another half story, right? Or allowing for another potential.
Well, but ignore that half story is what we looked at, is that if they use the roof space, the loft space of a roof, like the attic space, that's pretty much the half story is all we could figure on that. No one really could tell us what the half story meant. That was just something that's been in there since 1982.
I know for my home, I just went through that with the insurance company, and a half story is representative of the number of bedrooms on each floor. So if they're using that attic space as like a bedroom or a bonus room, then that would be a half story, from my understanding.
Okay, so 35 feet for high density single family.
I didn't hear anybody disagree with 35 feet.
Okay, I think the next consideration was for the accessory structures, to specify that it's for non-residential accessory structures. So this is not for accessory dwelling units. And this includes both permanent and portable structures, that they have to maintain these accessory structure setbacks. Does anybody have any questions or concerns with that?
I didn't. We would also just need to compare, I guess, any covenants that they would put together to make sure they don't disagree with what we have.
Okay. And then the next consideration is for the exception of pools, and for pools to maintain a 10-foot setback from the rear And then it would be a 7-foot setback from the side. Or Laureen, was the intent to maintain 7 feet, or I'm sorry, 10 feet from all property lines?
Oh, you mean on pools? Um, the pools was 10 feet from the rear, 7 foot from the side.
Okay, that's how it's written. I
Yeah.
just wanted to double check. And this would also be for in-ground and above ground pools, maintaining a 10-foot setback from the rear and 7 foot from the side.
Does anybody have any problem with those?
I'm good on that one. Can we go back to the portable structures? Just for 1 second. Um. It, yeah, I'm kind of struggling with the portable aspect.
Would you
And
like to
applying
see-
that to the same as a permanent.
So you're saying you're
Reduce
questioning
the-
whether to include the portable?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we need portable in there, but would you reduce? What would the setback be if you would? for
I
a
don't know that there's
portable?
an issue with a portable. I'm thinking like a modular shed, plastic shed or something like that. Everybody's gonna put those in the corner of their yard. They don't want to mow a 5 foot, 7 foot strip around it. It can be moved. I don't know really what the issue is with that. So what's the concern or what are the problems we're having with those? And who's gonna enforce this, I guess, is my other question.
Well, code enforcement's the one that enforces the code.
Because as soon as that gets passed, they got a bunch of work to do because I'm sure there's tons of portable sheds everywhere that aren't
We
gonna
can't look in people's backyards either by law.
be, okay. That makes me feel a little better, Rick. That's just something I want to bring up. If everybody's in agreement with it, that's fine. I just wanted to point that out.
It's not in there today, right? Lorraine and Nicole, the portable?
It doesn't specify portable or non-portable residential. It just says accessory structures.
Yeah, I mean, I think Joy does bring up a valid point in regards to the portable.
Yeah, I didn't think there was a requirement if it's a temporary or portable structure because it can be moved at any time. It doesn't, whether it's 7 feet or 6.5 feet, it doesn't matter if you can move it whenever you need to.
Well, if you completely take it out of here, then you'll have portable structures in your front yard also.
Well, I don't think we're bringing up the front. I think we're okay. So then I think it just needs to be reworded different than to where it would, if it prohibits the front, that's fine. I think Joey's big concern is putting it in their backyard in a corner. Whether they're 1 foot, 2 foot, or, I don't think there's a concern with that. I mean, I think we would all be in agreement. We don't want it in the front yard or on the side yard.
That was my understanding, Jeff, is the restriction on a 7 foot in the rear yard for a portable is kind of restrictive, I think. And there's, as Joey mentioned, I think half the city has already violated that, right?
Okay, so we can separate it out for permanent structures, 7 feet of rear property line.
I think in B, you could
Or-
just put rear, no permanent accessory structures or improvements, and I think that would fix the whole deal.
And I was gonna say for permanent structures, I mean, we could have it just consistent, be the 10 and the 7, and the portable is not restricted on the rear and the side.
'Cause-
Yeah, other than the front yards.
So if we do this with permanent though, just throwing it out that if someone wanted to put a pool house, if I was reading this correctly, then they would not be allowed to put a pool house that's permanent in their backyard. Is that correct? If we do it
They-
like,
They could, they would have to be 7 feet from the rear and 7
Okay.
feet from the side.
okay, I see that. Okay.
Unless it were on footers or something, right? Which is not permanent.
All right. Does that get you what you need there, Lorraine, Nicole?
I think so. Adding permanent, so no permanent accessory structures in the rear yard within 7 feet will be added.
Okay.
And just to reiterate, that'll be added to the other districts as well, or we'll address that as we come to them.
Well, this is for single family residential, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
I think we should have a discussion whenever we get to the multifamily,
Okay.
especially around the apartment part of it.
Okay. And it's prohibited in the side yard. Is everybody okay with that?
They were talking about making it a portable allowed in a side yard.
Nope. I think we
You
were
don't want
okay with, I think we were okay with nothing in the side.
Okay.
Okay. And then regarding the pools, the discussion with staff was for in-ground and above-ground pools. Are you guys okay with adding that? And the 10-foot requirement?
I think I'm okay with it. If somebody puts an above ground pool though, do they actually come and get a permit?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and above ground? Well, they
Yeah.
have to hook up electric to it typically for the pump. I don't know. I would,
But it depends on where they put their pump, right?
yeah.
I would, well, I don't know, Jeff. That's a good question.
I mean, I'm thinking there's a lot of electric cords that get run. And certainly, you know, if they're not coming in to get a permit, you know, if they can't look in a backyard, you know, from an enforcement perspective, I mean, are we creating something that can't be enforced? But just talking out loud.
Well, it gives something to be enforced when the neighbor's complaining because they built a deck around their above ground pool and they're hanging over the fence on their property. So
Okay.
we have had those.
I think if I recall our discussion with the building department during the staff meeting, they said for pools, they're just looking at the electrical bonding. That's what they permit for. I think they were okay. I don't want to go so far as to say they supported it, but they were okay with saying in ground and above ground pool. But I don't know to what degree they
I believe-
permit above ground. Is that your recollection, Lorraine?
Yeah, I remember, I thought Robbie sounded supportive of
I
that
was
10
kind of
foot.
thinking that too, but I since he's not here, I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily want to go that far, but
Well, let's leave it there for right now then.
okay. Okay, so the next district is for the duplex consideration. And we will adjust the 35 feet to the 40 feet and include the definition as we did above for the assembly uses. These are all per code today until we get to the height requirement. And again, we'll nix the 2.5 stories and go with the 35 feet if 35 feet is also the consideration for duplexes that you all want to consider.
Anybody not okay with the 35 feet? I think it probably makes sense in the duplex.
Is it okay if I just do it this way, Lorene, and they're good with that language?
Yeah, and my recommendation will be we match the accessory structure as well on a duplex since it's more of a residential.
Okay. Okay, so the next district, unless anybody has any other thoughts on the duplex requirements, is the R3 M6 medium high density multiplex. So the first question is that the definition or description says that it's intended for 1 to 2 structures on a single lot. And Lorene was wondering if you all wanted to allow for 2 structures on a single lot.
We don't have any examples of this around town today, do we? Just trying to figure out what it would look like.
I don't know of any that has the 2 structures on a single lot. We do have a rezone where that was, well, it's in the downtown area, and they're looking at putting 1 multifamily building and then 2 multifamily buildings on the other side. And how many units are in each building? I don't,
Donna, do you remember?
They were looking at a 5-plex. And it was I think it was a 5-plex and a 7-plex. In some variety of those 2 numbers.
but on one lot, they were looking at.
On one lot, they were looking at 2 buildings on the north lot.
So is that something that should just be allowed or something that would be more of a development and you combine them as total units on a lot? So it'd be over the 6 lots, the 6 units.
They're attached? Is that correct?
There'd be like, say there are 2 buildings with 6 units in each building. So you have a total of 12 units. So does that just automatically go to the requirements for a multifamily?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't meet the,
Okay.
it doesn't meet the density. I don't know that we're gonna see this one that often.
Okay, so I'm thinking that this needs to remove the 2 structures. It's just for 1 structure on a single lot.
Yeah, and maybe I read that wrong. I was reading this as 1 or 2 structures. It doesn't matter, but you can still only have 3 to 6 units. So if you've got two structures, you can still only have 6 units total. That's the way I read that, unless I'm reading it wrong.
So the intent is, so the 3 to 6 attached dwelling units does not necessarily speak to density. It speaks to the type of structure. So it's allowing 3 to 6 units attached, and it can be in a townhome form or it can be in a multiplex stacked form. And I'm trying to pull up some pictures to give some examples while I'm talking, because that might help. This is the Missing Middle website where they talk about, those missing middle housing types, and they are meant to be compatible in a residential, mixed residential area like our downtown. Oops, how do I get out of that? So that's an example of one. How do I get out of this? There we go. There's the X. I'm sorry, guys. This is kicking my butt. Oh, that's full screen. That's why. There's the X. So there's different, it's supposed to look like a very large single family house in most situations. And so the district is describing the type of structure, not necessarily the density. And so there may be a situation where you have a 4-acre parcel with 2 of this type of structure on it. Do you guys want to consider that, or would they need to do a tract split to do that?
I would see really no situation as a developer where you would want to put 2 of these on one lot where you couldn't sell them individually. Unless there's benefits to doing it on one lot. I don't know. I haven't ran into that often.
So you're thinking more of a condo situation versus a
Yeah.
flex that would be more for, I'll call it rental or residential.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're thinking one structure per lot, unless they go. And if they want to do 2 on a lot, then you're looking at a development.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Yeah,
Okay.
or a tract split. Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that keeps intent with what we're doing with the different zones also. With the R3, it's pretty much those units are on one lot. And then when we go to the R4, then we're looking at multiple units. Or multiple buildings on a lot.
Hey, Nicole, unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I was talking. So we will update the assembly to match what we discussed above, the 40 feet measured from the vertical distance from the ground elevation to the highest point of the roof line. If everybody's okay with that.
I think we're okay with that.
Okay. So the next consideration is for the 12,000 square feet for the first 3 dwelling units plus 3,500 square feet for each additional dwelling unit.
Yeah, I mean, it feels right, I guess, without seeing some math, to make sure that it works. I mean, I think it feels okay.
I think just to give some reference points, if you look at the 2-family requirement, it's 4,250. So the first 3 would be allowed to be at 4,000 square feet, plus an additional 3,500 square feet for each additional So it kind of uses the 2-family and reduces it a little bit. It kind of goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels okay to me. I don't know, does anybody else have any issues with it? Good, I think we're okay with that one.
Okay. And then the lot width, I think we kept, I'm going to go back up and fix that. We kept that at 80 feet, which is what it currently is in the code, and took out the language about the 20 feet for the additional units. One moment. Yeah, and took out the 20 feet. So it's just keeping 80 feet minimum. Okay. And then the height requirement, again, 35 feet, since this is supposed to be compatible with those mixed residential and kind of keep in line with single family and duplex. Kind of kept it the same. Everybody's okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be.
Okay, so the maximum lot coverage, I think we kind of already discussed. Are you guys okay with the 60%?
Yeah, I'm good with it. I think everybody else good with it, or is anybody not, I should say. I think we're okay with the 60%.
Okay, and there's also an opportunity, I think, with phase 2 to flesh that out a little bit. There was discussion about, buildable area versus impervious surface and what this building coverage is intended to do. And I think, as we get the meat on these districts a little bit more with the phase 2 revisions, we can kind of talk through that. But I think this is kind of a good starting point. Okay, and the accessory structures 10 feet from the rear side is prohibited. And then do you want the same consideration for the portable?
So see, I feel a little different about these if they're considered to be more of the structure that you sent us or showed us the picture of versus a duplex. It almost feels to me like an accessory structure should probably be part of the development in my opinion, because you're probably looking at more of a, parking lot situation around, and then instead of, a yard almost. So I'm a little worried about accessory structures here, and I don't know what any of the other commissioners feel about that, but it worries me a little bit in this one where they might end up and what they would look like.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. Is that something that just should be prohibited everywhere in this classification?
I mean, I think if it's not, in my opinion, if it's not part of the development, if you will, such as has been mentioned, maybe they need something for, their tools, or maybe they're, if there's, some on site, maybe as part of the development, but I wouldn't think we would want the residents just to move something randomly in and put it in the yard somewhere.
This is
Go ahead.
Juliet. I
Thank you.
was thinking, I wouldn't do a portable. I mean, I think I would just do permanent if you want accessory structures.
Yeah, however you want to call it out. I agree, Julie. I don't think we want anything that's random accessory put in here.
Does it, So I'm sorry, I'm not quite following. If we put no permanent, or you're saying exclude portable from the
Yeah, exclude
title.
exclude portable. Yeah.
Okay. But is that allowing portable now? Because it's not regulating portable?
I think
You need to prohibit portable.
yeah.
Well, it sounds like we were trying to prohibit all of them.
Well, but Joey, my only thinking about that is that if there was an accessory, if there was a permanent accessory structure, let's say that this thing had 12 units or more, and they wanted to have some kind of on-site storage, would we prohibit them from having an area to store, whether it be their equipment or anything like? I don't know. I'm just talking out loud.
It could also be detached garages if you had 6 units and 6 carports or something.
I think Jeff, I think where you're going is just, we want a chance to review that in this particular zoning, right?
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, if the garage is, as Lorraine mentions, one I didn't think of at first, but that could be one that could be considered accessory. I think we just prohibit the portable, and I think it covers what we're trying to do.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that? Okay, so the next district is the R4 multifamily, which is a high density multifamily district.
So this would be the apartments is what
This would be the apartments, correct?
And so just for the commissioners, remind me what, because I know we talked about in our meeting, what is the one at 279 and 102 units per acre? Do you remember?
Center Point West. Lorraine, was it around 14 or 15?
I think it was right around 15.
And then watercolor, I believe, which we happen to be talking about tonight, but it was more, is that correct?
Watercolors, right?
The
The
PUD.
PUD,
Go ahead, Diane.
the PUD allows for up to 22 units per acre.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to point that out as a reference. So is everybody okay with 18 in this case? Or does
And if-
anybody disagree?
And if they
I
wanted
am.
to
I think
go,
22 is too much. It does not allow for much green space. They did put in a lot of amenities. I was surprised watercolor was so high. And that I can't think what the one is. What's the other one?
Center Point.
127 Center Point, that it was 15 because
Well, they have a rather large pond too, though.
yeah, the pond is pretty large, but I don't know.
I mean, I'm okay with 18. If nobody disagrees, then I think we leave it at 18.
And if there's a special circumstance, right, they would come get an exception to that, right? Like watercolor.
They could do a PUD, correct?
And that's a unique circumstance where it's just the lay of the land and how things work. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, and in this district, for assembly uses, is 40 feet still the consideration?
I mean, I think we want to be consistent, right?
Okay, and the 2,500 again kind of gets us right at the 18 units per acre per unit. Everybody okay with that?
As long as the math works.
And then the 100-foot lot width.
Yeah, again, as long as the math works, I think that's good.
Okay, and then the 50-foot building setbacks on all sides, I'm sorry, on front, rear, and street side, and then 15-foot setback on the side with the height requirement that if you go more than the 35-foot requirement, you're adding 2 feet of setback for each additional foot of height. So if you increase by 10 feet, if you increase your height by 10 feet, you're increasing your setback by 20 feet.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like the right thing to do because you're trying to space it out if you go taller, if it was in a mixed area, correct?
Right, and you'd get more separation because if you have a single or two-story single-family residential home and you're directly adjacent to a 3 or 4-story apartment, you want a little bit more separation from those taller buildings.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like the right thing to do. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay, I think we're okay with that concept, Nicole.
Um, I'm trying to differentiate between these two. I think we were, okay, so I need to cross out that and we'll kind of combine the two. Okay, and then what about the 16 feet for accessory structures except storage buildings, which shall not exceed, I think we're proposing 12 feet. Is that right, Laureen?
And that would be like the garage and stuff.
16
No.
feet.
Yeah, well, the garages were typically 12 feet. They have a low profile.
Which is on
roof.
the right hand, which is on the
Yeah.
right hand side, but
Yeah,
if they
so I
wanted to
don't, the
build-
storage buildings, a 10-foot storage buildings, just not very, to me, it's not enough. If you're looking at even 8-foot walls and a 4-foot, you're looking at minimum 12-foot.
Yep, 16's fine. 16's fine.
Okay, and then the lot coverage being 50%. And I'm sorry, did we want to do 12 instead of 10 for storage?
Or just 16 feet for all.
Yeah, I mean, 16's fine. I mean,
Okay.
See.
Okay, and I'm sorry, 50% coverage is the next item.
Yeah, does anybody disagree with the 50%? I think we're okay with that one as well.
Okay, and then the parking is 1.5 spaces for each dwelling unit.
Is that what we have today?
No, our current parking code requires 2 spaces for every unit, right, Maureen?
I thought we looked at that.
I don't
I thought we
think what-
figured it out the same way.
Did we? I don't think we have a for
It's not
multifamily.
specifically in the code, because
Yeah.
I've looked previously. I know for the PUD for watercolors that it is 1.5 spaces required.
Yeah. If it's
Yeah, I
1.5, we'll leave it at 1.5 then.
I think we use the ICC.
Yeah, so the residential
Oh.
off-street parking is at least 2 parking spaces for each dwelling unit, which is excessive for apartments typically. And I think in our PUDs, we often use the 1.5 spaces, but it's not a code requirement at the moment.
I think 1.5 is fine.
Okay. And then the screening requirement and the open space requirements are proposed. Does anybody have any comments or thoughts on those?
Joey's our landscape guy. You feel you okay with those?
Hey, as long as we get some stuff, yeah, I'm good with that.
I think it feels like a good amount of stuff.
And again, with the phase 2, it'll probably be fleshed out a little. This is pretty basic, just that there will be screening for, different types of uses, and there's a landscape buffer of 10 feet wide along the property and things like that. I think it'll probably get beefed up a little bit. And then the 15% visible from the public right of way. Let me just make a quick note that you all were okay with these. And then well, I'll have to revise this title to match the previous sections for non-residential, permanent, and portable. And then I guess, how do you all feel about the portable in this district? And then also revising this to 10 feet instead of 7.
Yeah, this doesn't feel like we want any portable in here either.
Oh my goodness. Okay. And then 10 feet.
Yeah, I think that feels right.
And I think this must have just been a typo on my part. I think it was supposed to be 10, but since it was published that way, we'll specify. Okay, so, and then the schedule of uses, how do you all want to, does anybody have any comments looking through it?
I think if you guys fleshed it out and we don't have any concerns, we probably need to get moving.
Yeah, in general, we kind of started from what the existing R3 requirement was, and then if it made sense to change it, for instance, residential child care, we removed the conditional use from the multifamily districts. It's still conditional for single family and duplexes, but the residential child care in apartments has been removed. There was really just a handful that didn't follow the existing R3 requirement.
Yeah, I didn't see anything else there either.
Okay. Okay. So the last item for discussion with these code revisions, the actual district zonings on the ground have to change as well, because there will no longer be an R3 district. For most properties, it was pretty clear. So I guess what we did, we started, oh my goodness, my map is out of order. I'm sorry. We started by identifying the properties that did not have a specific designation and were just zoned R3. I think it was prior to like 2016 or somewhere around there. Here's the map. And we pulled those out. So that's all the yellow on this map. These were not specifically zoned single family duplex or multifamily. They just had an R3 designation. And then we had to dig in subdivision by subdivision and designate the current developments, how they were developed. So single family subdivisions are designated R3 SF. And those subdivisions that are duplex are R3D, and so forth. There are a few undeveloped parcels, and so we went in and looked at the ordinances for each of these, and some of them actually did designate for single family, or actually I think that was primarily the only designation, and we were able to pull that designation in. However, there are still a handful that did not clearly designate what the intent was. And I'm sorry, I need to pause again before I flip through everything. And those have been highlighted. And I think you guys have this full map in your packets, so you can kind of look through. Okay, and I'm sorry, this exhibit's not super clean, but that you can see the yellow is still the areas that do not have any kind of designation that need your guys' consideration and council's consideration as to how to designate them. There was one typo or Scrivener's error. This is a duplex subdivision, so that will need to be changed. That's is it Apple Ridge, Lorraine? But those are duplexes, so that'll need to change to R3D. But then these bright yellow need some direction. The recommendations in red were kind of the staff discussion. The downtown area, it made sense to us to go that R3 M6 that allows for single family duplex or multifamily, in this area being central in the heart of the city, makes sense to have that mixed residential type housing to us. There's a large undeveloped parcel along the creek, along Bliss and D. We looked at the land use plan, and it's medium high density in this area, which allows for a density of 7 to 11. And so we kind of pulled out the R3D because that fits squarely with that designation. And if they want anything in addition to that, they'd have to rezone. And then these lots along Main Street are primarily single family and the cemetery. So it made sense to keep those R3 single family until they're maybe zoned commercial in the future. I guess let's start with those. Is everybody following? Does anybody have any questions? The downtown area?
I think those all make sense to me. Does anybody disagree with any of those? I mean, it feels like what we've been talking about.
Mhm. Yeah. And we have those 2 parcels that were recently rezoned in the downtown area to R3 M6. So it'd kind of continue that. And there's existing multiplexes in that area as well. Okay, so the other piece is over on Keller and Bliss. It was rezoned originally with the entire Morningside subdivision. It was originally rezoned at the time of annexation. The north part was actually rezoned R2, and then the south part, I think it was 40 acres, was rezoned to R3 without any kind of designation. Later on, the rest of the Morningside area was rezoned to R3 single family. And so you can see that it is surrounded by R3 single family. And that is why we, as staff discussed R3 single family. But again, this is for your consideration.
Yeah, I think the single family makes sense there as well.
The land use plan, also just to give you that context, calls for medium high. Let me see, I put it in here. Let me make sure that it's not out of order. And let me zoom in just a little bit. So that's this parcel here. It actually designates it as medium high density with medium low surrounding it. So the R3 single family still fits into that category. And if they wanted something higher density, they'd need to request a rezone.
Yeah. Okay.
Lorene or Brian, did you guys have any thoughts or questions on any of this?
Not yet, but I think we talked about that late this afternoon. I'd like to probably get together with you guys maybe sometime this week and kind of discuss how we're going to handle some of that.
I do have a concern on these parcels that we are designating the downtown. I don't know, there's just, we might be able to go through the downtown. I mean, there's a lot of single family. They can go up to, the M6. There's some that have, I think 4 units. Another one has 3. So I don't have a problem with that density. And the ones being left single family along the highway are fine. The ones where I know like the R3D, I believe that the owner would be agreeable to that, but there wouldn't be an issue. I think that's what they're looking at there. The one on the northeast corner of Morningside of Seba and Keller, I think that they are maybe looking at a higher density on that, but just so far, every plan that we've seen, it hasn't been able to work with the higher density either. So those are just my thoughts out there. Those 2 properties would be the only ones where I hesitate that the property owner maybe should have some notification that this R3 zoning is going to be limited to, single family or something.
Yeah, and
I don't
think,
know how to do that with when we're doing a big scale like this. It's difficult to do until we do get it narrowed down to this point. But.
And so I do want to keep us moving forward a little bit. And I think, we'll certainly look for some guidance from Brian on how that should take place. We had intended for this to be open to the public this evening to see if there were any comments, but I definitely want to keep us moving forward because we do have quite a bit else on the agenda. So if there's not anything else from staff in regards to those, I would like to move forward if we are going to open it up to the public. So Brian, I did want to ask, I know we again had published this, for the public. It wasn't, I understand we did make some changes. We had some discussions, and of course, some additions this evening. Still okay to open it up to the public and then decide how we want to proceed from there?
What changes did we make?
A few height changes here and there, some structure changes on portable versus permanent. Those are the primary changes that we made, and really more for clarification this evening.
Right. My opinion is really just, it's always better to be a little bit safe and just to give them another opportunity since we've made changes.
So, okay. So I hear that. Should we go ahead and open this evening just in case there's anything else that we could discuss, and then?
I think that's fine as well.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions from any of the commissioners in regards to this before I open it up to the public? Okay. With that, I would like to go ahead and entertain a motion to open the public hearing for any comments or questions in regards to the Title 14 zoning code amendments.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for the items we just went over for the amendments.
It's John, I'll second.
So we do have a motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. I know I forgot to do the slide at the beginning. If you joined virtually, there's an opportunity to raise your hand at the bottom and you can be recognized. If you happen to call in and had any questions or comments, then I think you can push *9 or *9, and then we typically see the last 3 digits of your phone number. We can recognize you that way. And we do ask, this as a courtesy, about 3 minutes or so per comments or conversation as we move forward. So with that, if there's anyone that wishes to speak in regards to the Title 14 zoning amendments, go ahead and raise your hand and then you can be recognized. And I don't know, Nicole or Diana, are you monitoring?
There are no hands raised at the moment.
Okay. So we'll do a second call for anyone that wishes to speak.
There are no hands raised at the moment.
We'll do a third and final call.
There are still no hands raised.
Okay. So with that, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Craig.
This
I'll
is
make a
Joey.
motion to close the public hearing.
This is Joey. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? All right, so we have all the suggestions. We have all the recommended changes, acceptances, if you will. So Brian, if I understood correctly, even though all the changes were public tonight, you think we should have one more, or you think we can go ahead and approve this?
Well, with the changes that were made, are we talking about just the changes that we made into tonight's meeting?
Yes.
Oh, I'm okay with it. What I understood was that you're indicating that maybe some changes have been made since this had been put on the agenda, and since this proposed code had been made available to the public.
Nope, I think it was minor.
Okay.
In adjustments this evening and clarification.
No, then we're good. I apologize for misunderstanding you.
Nope, that's okay.
Right.
So if there's no other comments from either staff or any of the commissioners, then I would entertain a motion to approve, if you will, the Title 14 zoning code amendments as we discussed this evening.
This is Ben. I'll make a motion to approve Title 14 zoning code amendments.
This is Tony, I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Todd, I believe you're still with us. If you'll do a roll call for me, since it was a public hearing.
Sure. Tony Davis,
Yes.
Amber Beal,
Yes.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Craig Langford,
Yes.
and Jeff Seifarth.
Yes. All right, thanks to the commission for their patience. I know there's a lot of work to go through on these, and certainly has been a lot of work. So I do appreciate your patience on that. With that, we're going to move on to item B this evening. Item B is also a public hearing. This is rezone 2119, the King property from A1 to R3 single family. It's approximately 103 acres, rounding up just a little bit, 8801 Tycoon Road. And is the applicant here to give us just a brief overview?
Yes, the applicant is on here, and it is John Wary, and then also Will Kellstrom has his hand raised after John.
Hey, John, you want to just give us a brief overview?
Okay, yeah, this is John Wary with Morrison Shipley. We are representing the applicant on this request. And as you stated, Jeff, the request is to zone approximately 103 acres on the west side of Tycoon Road from A1 to R3 single family. Excuse me. I believe the landowner and the potential developer are both available on tonight's call. And we'll try to answer any questions the commission has as they work through their consideration.
All right, thanks, John. Diane, I didn't catch the second name. Was there someone else that wished to speak?
Yes, it is Will Kellstrom.
Hey, Will.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Will Kellstrom, and I'm representing the applicant. The subject property here is roughly 103 acres at 8801 North Tycoon Road, which is currently owned by the King family. We're requesting that the property be rezoned from A1 to R3 so that a buyer can develop it into a single-family residential subdivision. The elephant in the room on this proposal is going to be that it does not fully comply with you guys' future land use map. The future land use map calls for this parcel to be a mix of medium and high-density residential and commercial, with the commercial being along Tycoon Road. As far as I can tell, the plan contemplates Tycoon Road being a major arterial with commercial up and down each side. The reason Tycoon has been labeled this way is because the Centerton Master Plan designates Tycoon Road as the location for the new north-south connector that has been being discussed lately by the Arkansas Department of Transportation and Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission. However, to hold all of the landowners on Tycoon Road to this future land use map at this point is much too speculative, I think, for a few reasons. For one, no one really knows the location of this north-south connector yet. Tycoon Road is one of several alternatives that is being discussed by RDOT. At this point, any north-south road in the area is technically a candidate for being this north-south connector. If the location of this north-south connector turns out to be somewhere other than Tycoon, then the plan for Tycoon Road kind of becomes moot. All the traffic's going to go down through another corridor. Even if we knew for certain that this is where that north-south connector was going, according to RDOT, that road is at least 5 and more than likely 10 to 20 years from being built. There's no demand for commercial on Tycoon Road right now because there's no traffic. No one lives out there. In order to attract commercial development, you're going to need rooftops, and that's what we're trying to give you by zoning all of this R3. To deny this request based on the land use map will be to trap the King family with several acres of essentially unsellable commercial land while they wait for commercial demand to arise over possibly the next 20 years. Centerton actually stands to benefit from this property being rezoned. The future land use for the future roadmap plans that Huber Road extension, as you can see on the screen right now, to run all the way to Tycoon Road, and it's going to be a minor arterial road. That road is going to run right through the property we're asking you to rezone. Centerton, if it wants to build out its master street plan the way it's been planned, is going to need help from developers. If this property is rezoned R3, my client's going to develop it and would be responsible for dedicating right of way along this planned minor arterial and helping with the development of the road. If this property is not rezoned, Centerton's going to have to acquire the right of way, which would include acquiring the King's Home and outbuildings, which lie directly in the path of this planned minor arterial. Rezoning this property so that my client can develop it is a much more efficient way of rebuilding this, of building out this minor arterial road. And my last point on this, I've actually been kind of surfing some news articles on this while I was listening to you guys on that first item, but the cost of housing in Northwest Arkansas and across the nation is skyrocketing right now. We need houses and we need affordable houses. With an R3 zoning, a moderately dense single-family residential neighborhood, this is what we're trying to give you. So that's all I've got. Thank you guys for listening. And as Mr. Wary said, me, the King family, and the developer are all here to answer questions if you guys have any. Thank you.
Thanks, Will. Diane, do you want to give us a staff overview and then we'll open up to the public?
Yes, this property, as everyone has stated, is to the west of Tycoon Boulevard or Tycoon Road, and it is approximately 103 acres, and it is currently designated as agriculture. They do wish to rezone to high-density single-family residential with a suitable lot area of 6,000 square feet, minimum lot area per dwelling unit 6,000 square feet also, a minimum lot width of 60, setbacks on the front and the street side are 25 feet, side 7 feet, and 20 feet from the rear, and accessory structures are prohibited on the front and the street side, and of course we just talked about a lot of that a few minutes ago. This property is on Tycoon, which is designated as a major arterial with 100 feet of right-of-way. And also the master street plan designates a future minor arterial that would run just to the south of the largest part of the property, but, would dissect it, north and south with a future major arterial, major collector, my apologies, nope. I'll read my notes correct sometime. Minor arterial of 90 feet. And also on the very western side of the property, there is a future major collector, which is 80 feet in right-of-way on the very western side of the property. As of right now, it kind of looks like this property is in a sea of agriculture, but over to just the east of this, at Bush Road in Tycoon, there are several R3 single-family residence subdivisions going in that area. And let's see, utilities, public water is available along North Tycoon Road, and Frank stated that public sewer is not available adjacent to the site currently, but it will be available by the end of 2021, and that will also be on the east side of Tycoon Road where the water line is. This area does not appear to be in a floodplain, but the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Wetlands Inventory Mapper does show a possible freshwater pond, riverine, and a freshwater emergent wetland on the property. So a wetland assessment would be required for this property prior to development of this. And just so you know, a freshwater emergent wetland is characterized by erect rooted herbaceous hydrophytes, don't know what those are, excluding mosses and lichens. So there's some random wetland knowledge for you. The surrounding zoning, as I stated, is A1 with some R3 over to the east side and the north of Bush Road, the east side of Tycoon Road. So the requested zoning may be considered compatible with the adjacent zoning. And as far as the land use plan, as Mr. Kellstrom had stated, this whole area right along Tycoon, we do have as commercial, especially the intersection here of the future minor arterial and Tycoon Road as a commercial node, right at that intersection. And then the southernmost portion, that would be the south side of that future minor arterial, is high density residential, which are typically like your apartments or the multiplexes. But a large portion of it is in the high medium density residential, which that would be compatible with the land use plan. And let's see, and I do also have in y'all's packets kind of the list of how it's consistent with the comprehensive plan implementation. One of the biggest things, of course, is if this is all the commercial, that would go against what we have about retail options along major corridors to help serve the expected population growth and capture additional retail sales. And one of the corridors that it does specifically state is this Tycoon Road between LC Hickman and Motley Road. So that's, of course, not consistent if this would be all R3. And I think that's all I have. And if you have any questions, let me know. And then Nicole will pull up the screen for the PC consideration questions. And of course, any comments from the public.
All right, thanks, Diane. We'll go ahead and open it up to the public. So with that, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing for the rezone 2119, the King property. Again, it's A1 to R3 single family is the ask, approximately 103 acres at 8801 Tycoon Road.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to open rezone 2119.
It's John, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. With that, we'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Again, there's two ways that you can be recognized. The first one is if you joined virtually, there's a raise the hand, or if you happen to join by phone, you can press *9 or *9, and then you can be recognized by the last three digits of your number. So with that, Nicole, Diane, is there anyone that wishes to speak?
I don't. Oh, go ahead, Nicole.
Nope, go ahead, Diane. It's all yours.
The only hand that I see raised. Oh, nope. Here we go. Here's one. Doug and Elizabeth King.
Hey, guys.
Hi, this is Doug and Elizabeth King. We are just present this evening to ask for your support and approval of our property from agriculture to residential. That way, Centerton can carry on with their housing project. So we would appreciate if you would take into consideration all of the hard work that the developer has done. Mr. Zurich, he is with us this evening also, and he will give you all of the information that you will need. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Diane or Nicole, anyone else that wishes to speak?
Yes, the next hand raised is from Kevin Zurich. Pretty sure I butchered his last name.
You did it good.
Good evening, Chairman and staff. You did fine on my name. You did very good. Thank you. I would just like to point out that I've spent a good bit of time so far, not only with Mr. Wary as my engineer. We've met numerous times with Rick Hudson discussing conceptual layouts, plans for this property that the Kings own. And we recently developed a preliminary concept plan took it back to Mr. Hudson. I believe that was our third meeting on the matter, discussing the development, not only what we would be willing to do as far as a current improvement for our section of Tycoon, but additionally facilitating the right-of-way and modified street section from Tycoon going west into the development as it is phase developed. And Mr. Hudson said he would support our proposed developments. He thought they would be reasonable at the time. Of course, I know that'll come up more so when we submit the subdivision, hoping that we get through that. And additionally, I've done a lot of research on the area. I think it's a very exciting area. I know there's a lot of growth coming your way. You're very fortunate. I look forward to hopefully being a key developer in that growth. And I've done both residential and commercial development. I own and operate 7 hotels that I've developed in different parts of Louisiana. So I have a little feel for development and have done residential also. And as I think we all know, it takes rooftops and residents to create demand for anything commercial. This is so early in the development. I think it's going to be quite a while with or without RDOT electing for Tycoon to be a major north-south thoroughfare. You're still going to need a tremendous amount of residential footprint there to create any kind of possible future commercial development. And the Kings and I have developed a good relationship through working through this. We're anxious to contribute to Centerton and its development, with everyone being cognizant that Huber, of course, goes right, I believe, approximately through the kitchen of the King's residence. So, of course, part of what I'm committing to do, if our rezoning is approved by y'all, is when time comes, once we get all the subdivision submitted to y'all for approval, and then the Kings relocate, I will also remove their residence and associated structures to clear the way for the pathway for the Huber Road extension and y'all's acquisition of the right-of-way as we go. So if y'all have any questions at all, I'm here. I'll be happy to answer anything to any degree of detail you wish to ask me, and I appreciate your consideration of our application tonight.
Thanks, Kevin. Diane or Nicole, anyone else that wishes to speak?
Yes, there is a Bonita Stubbs.
Hey there, did you have something to add, a question or a comment this evening?
I'm just here to support the Kings.
All right, thank you. Can you give us your address and for the record, please?
8778 North Tycoon Road.
All
It's
right,
right
thank you.
across from Doug and Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you. Diane or Nicole, anyone else?
We have a Paul Stubbs.
Hey, Paul.
Good neighbors, and we support their efforts.
All right, thanks, Paul. I think I understood that you supported it as well. Kind of a little bit of feedback there. Diane, anyone else?
Yes, there is Tyler Thompson.
Hey, Tyler.
Good evening. I own 20 acres there at 13470 LC Hickman Road. And I recently just spent some time with the staff looking at a light commercial proposal for that property and kind of just generally talking about what they see in the future for the area. And through that process, it came up that it's just slow right now. The city doesn't have it in the budget to pave that road. That's the last 2 miles of unpaved road between Bentonville and Gravette. And I, as a property owner in the area, support you know, anything we can do to get infrastructure and better roads and get the future moving out that direction. So as a neighboring property owner, I support.
All right, thank you, Tyler. Diane, anyone else that wishes to speak?
There it is. It is a C Stu, STU.
Hey, go ahead.
Oh, I got a note when I asked him or her to unmute. It says allow to talk is not available because C-Stu is using an older version of Zoom.
Okay.
Nicole, it's asking to promote to panelist. Don't know if we want to do that.
Another member of the Stubbs family?
Yes, sir.
Oh, hey, there we go. You got through.
Yeah, I turned it off.
Oh, well, there we go.
I just wanted to support the Kings.
Who is this?
Yeah, will you just give us your name and address for the record, please?
Todd Stubbs, 100 West First Street, Centerton.
All right, thank you. All right, Diane, anyone else?
You have a Taylor Stubbs.
Hey, Taylor.
I'm here in support of the Kings.
All right, could you give us your address as well, Taylor?
A10 Gamble Road.
Thank you. Diane, anyone else?
I do not see any additional hands raised. And we do have a couple that are still raised, like Will's had his raised. I don't know if he still would
We
like to
just need
speak.
to lower them.
Okay.
If they're done speaking.
Okay.
I do want to say that Matt Thompson did give his verbal support for this rezone, and I don't know what his address is. I can look it up real quick. He's just the parcel south along on the northwest corner of Shady Acres and Tycoon. So he's directly adjacent to this property.
All right, thanks, Lorraine. We'll do a second call for anyone that wishes to speak.
There are no more hands raised.
And we'll do a third and final call.
There are no more hands raised.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing for rezone 2119.
This is Amber. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for rezone 21-19 King property.
This is
Joey, I'll
Ben, I
second.
second.
We have a motion and a couple seconds. Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you guys. Nicole, let's go ahead and go over to the considerations. And as Nicole's doing that, any questions or comments from any of the commissioners before we go through what we need to consider?
Can we pull up the current land use plan, please?
Yes. Nicole, we'll see how quick you are to get us back to the land use plan. There it is for you, Tony. Does that help? Does that answer your question, Tony?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. All right, now Nicole, asking you to switch back to the questions that we need to consider. All right, thank you. The first one here that we need to consider, again from A1 to R3 single family, is the rezoning consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, including the adopted land use plan? If not, and why? And I think we'll have some good discussion here. Again, I think if we look at the land use plan, that I want to remind the commission is looking forward, based on all the input that we have before, including the surveys and everything. The land use plan is really designed to look at that 5, 10, maybe even 15 years out, with us reviewing it every 7 to 10 years. So just as a reminder for that, and Tony, I appreciate you asking to bring it up. And I say that because, the commercial consideration there was around the development in the future, from a residential being surrounded, if you will, and the commercial being there. And as a reminder, we've had some discussions recently around if we do give up that commercial, then we don't get it back. And so I understand the difference between we need some, I believe that Kevin mentioned, we definitely need some rooftops, but if we put rooftops here and we don't allow for any commercial at all, then we don't have, we wouldn't be able to have commercial in the future. And so just something to consider. So with that being said, the whole parcel, in my opinion, is not consistent with the adopted land use plan, understanding, looking at the future. And then with that, I'm going to open it up to any other comments or questions from any of the commissioners.
Jeff, I think I agree with you. I don't think it meets any of it.
Any other comments or questions from any of the other commissioners? Okay. I'm going to go on to the second one that we need to consider then. The second one is the proposed rezoning compatible with the surrounding area and zones. And I would agree with this one in the fact that there are some single family and other residential in that area. So, it would be compatible. Again, I think we go back to, the mixed here, as we think about it. So, in my mind, does residential housing, is it compatible? I think the answer is yes. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. The third one, would all the permitted uses in the new zone be compatible in this location and the surrounding areas? And again, as it is today, single family, absolutely. But if there were some other commercial to develop, then we would need to consider, whether it would be compatible or not, and what the spacing, between them looks like. Any comments or questions on that? I'm going to go on to the next one then. The next one, would the rezoning provide a benefit to one landowner but not be considered for other similar properties in this area? And I think this is the one that always catches us. But as I look at it, if we were to allow for one single rezone here for all residential, based on the land use plan of having some commercial down a main road, then, we would have to consider the same thing in the future, or we would be benefiting one landowner in regards to this. Does anybody have any comments or disagree with that? Okay. I did not hear any public opposition. Everyone that was on the phone, based on what I understood, was in favor. Tyler talked a little bit about some of the potential light commercial and some discussions that he's had as well. But again, there were no facts or any other, objections in regards to this particular rezoning request. So after those considerations, are there any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
I'd like to get Rick's input on his discussions with the seller developer and his thoughts on the future plan in the area.
My conversation has been primarily on adjacent street improvements. I'm just in complete agreement with what he was saying about, we don't know that that's going to be the main corridor. You know, I don't know. I'm not a visionary. I've got a real heart that I feel that if we keep this people who've made their living there a chance from selling their property now and then having a great retirement, I have a great hardship with that. But I do understand that we as a city have to set land aside. Do we have to set every acre of this? Do we, you know, that we may move some of this to the other side of the road and enlarge that area as industrial area? You guys have got a hard job determining what this is, but my heart is that, you know, these people have made a career here. They've been a part of this community forever. And we've decided that this is a visionary path at where we want it to be. Now we're going to keep them from having a good retirement or anything else. I have a hard time with that, guys.
Rick, what's the status on RDOT?
One of the conversations we had with them, they were considering going further to the west, but everything is speculative right now. There's nothing put in writing. Their funding is low. The federal funding is low. I don't expect it to be in 5 or 10 years. No, I would think something like this may be further down the road. Look how long we've been waiting on Highway 102 to be fixed through town. Look how long we've been waiting on the 4-lane to be extended out to 279. You're probably looking at 10 or 20 years from this. Right now, honestly, this is me as working there forever. The infrastructure that we got in place, look at our bridges, they're falling apart because most of those were designed to last 50 years. How many bridges we got? It's over 50 years old on Interstate 40 and everything else. We're not keeping up with the infrastructure we got, and it's fixing to bite us in the butt. So there's going to come a point we have to stop building and recover what we got. But that's my opinion.
Thanks, Rick. Any other comments or questions from any of the commissioners?
Just to add a quick additional point to that, the consideration with RDOT, I think, is really just about, you know, potentially expediting the infrastructure improvements. But ultimately, the community has North Tycoon Road as a major arterial on the master street plan for our long range planning purposes, and that corridor is meant to connect the Bella Vista bypass from the north all the way south to the airport, regardless of whether RDOT chooses that as their corridor. It'd be great if they did, because it would help, you know, expedite those improvements. But regardless, it's a planned major arterial for the community, and whether that happens in 10 years or 50 years, we don't know. But with the growth, it's a planned arterial, I guess, is the point I wanted to make.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, and I guess with that, you know, any other development along Tycoon would ask for the same right of way, so that section of road would be built. And then it's really the question of, does the commercial fit there? And if it's the plan to get it all the way to the airport, I mean, you would assume that it does, but the feasibility of that is another discussion. So a little up in the air here. You know, I know we had kind of the same thing on Main Street. I think there are a couple differences between the two, but I'd love to hear other planning commissioners' thoughts. Tony's normally outspoken on these.
Yeah, this is a tough one like we've seen before. I mean, I'm having a hard time with it, the way it's presented with a corridor. You know, we've talked about it in our last training session. Maybe they can come in and ask to change the land use plan. That would make this decision a whole lot easier. If we decided that we did not think a commercial corridor could go there in a timely manner. I don't know. the proposal, the way it is challenging for me to approve the way it is with no commercial buffer there. And that's what I'm struggling with. I mean, look what happened 30 years ago down 102 when we allowed subdivisions to go right down the highway. I mean, that was kind of short-sighted and we lost a lot of commercial area then. Not saying this is 102 and it's really apples and oranges to make that statement, but that's an example I can think of.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, and I know that they continue to have, discussions, if you will, around connection to the airport, around getting, the traffic around Bella Vista. I know it continues to be, there's conversations, but, certainly just conversations at this point. But I do appreciate, everyone's opinion. John, I know you're a little under the weather, but you're normally share some insight on any of these as well. Anything to add?
Yeah, I'm like Tony, honestly. I'm kind of on the fence there. Looking at precedents, we've said no to this exact same request essentially on Main Street, right? And being fair and candid with all the proposals and being consistent, we've said no to similar things when it comes to reducing commercial space. But I also don't disagree that what we're planning for here is more really, really long range. It kind of would make sense, but at the same time, I think we're answering, question 5 goes back to, would we permit this from any other user, right? Would we permit this same request from any other landowner? And if that answer is no, then I have a hard time, aligning to approving this, because then that opens the door for every landowner along Tycoon to come back and request a change to where you don't have any of that commercial.
Yeah, John, I think you're right. I think if you get rid of the commercial, it's pretty much gone.
Yep. Yeah. And I wanted to ask, and maybe I missed it. My hearing's a little off today, but the landowner was not agreement or not trying to consider mixed use for this property, right? It's all residential, or there was no consideration for mixed use. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for Kevin or anyone, but that's what I heard in his description at the beginning, was that commercial wouldn't work, and that, he wanted all rooftops is what I heard and made a note of whenever Kevin did his presentation for us.
Okay.
And frankly, the density requirement, the density discrepancy doesn't bother me near as much as the commercial does.
Yeah.
And I think that's where everybody's at.
And to one point, if we take that commercial out, we're talking about Tycoon being a future development there. If we took that out and eliminated that commercial from that stretch of Tycoon, would that then weigh on RDOT's decision to put it there? Or would they want to move it to another street? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, John. Craig, did you have something that you wanted to add or comment?
Yeah, just I guess one or two quick things. So, first of all, thinking about all the commercial stuff that we have had come through recently, and I mean, thinking about Main Street, the stuff on 102, especially on the eastern side of Centerton. I mean, I'm glad we're starting to see that fill in. I mean, I've lived here 15 years, and it's starting to fill in. But it seems like there's quite a bit of, correct me if I'm wrong, but quite a bit of commercial still out there that is, in terms of on the roads that it's on and where it's geographically centered. There's a lot out there to be had. And I know we don't want to lose anything from a 15, 20 year perspective. But at the same time, does that change 7 years from now when we see all these additional houses? To what John just said, maybe RDOT does change it, but is that okay? Is that an okay thing to change a little bit further west for us with all the houses? But I do know that it's the commercial side that helps pay for a lot of the infrastructure pieces that we're going to need if we start putting a lot of these rooftops, especially on the southwest side of town.
Yeah,
I want to remind everybody, we're taking the right of way for an arterial.
Right, that was gonna be my point, right? Yeah.
I mean, the housetop shouldn't affect that part of it.
But then we have an arterial that has residential on every side of it and no commercial opportunity. And then that leads us back to is it feasible?
And Craig makes a good point. You know, we're putting all these R3s on that side of the world out there, and those people that live out there are going to have wants and needs for commercial businesses to support them. And what does the city do to take care of that? Do we send them all back to 102?
Thanks, Tom. Any other comments from any of the commissioners?
Yeah, I have a comment. I think it's easy to get hung up on the future land use plan, and we need to remember that that's just a suggestion. As the land exists today, I think this project fits. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, thanks, Amber. If there are no other comments from either the commissioners or staff, I would like to entertain a motion in regards to the rezone 2119, the King property, again, A1 to R3 single family is the request, approximately 103 acres at 8801 Tycoon Road.
Jeff, are we set on we wanted to have a vote today? I mean, could we could make a motion and then take the vote. I mean, if the submission wants an answer tonight.
Would you guys be willing to table this?
Yeah, we would be willing to table it. I'm not sure who, was that you, Kevin? I didn't get to see who requested.
Will Kellstrom representing the applicant.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you guys would like to request a table, you've heard our comments, you've heard our discussions, you've heard the staff discussions. We would certainly be open to a table vote this evening, and then we would just need to bring it back whenever you guys would want to do that.
Jeff, that's what I was getting there. If that's the case, then I'll Mr. John, I'll motion to table rezone 2119 King property pending further discussion with the applicant.
This is Tony, I second.
So we have a motion and we have a second to table per the applicant. Are there any of the commissioners that are opposed?
No, can we let Will, he was going to say something. Can we let him finish?
Oh,
I'm
what
sorry.
I was going to ask is whether I needed to formally request a table, but I think I got my answer.
Oh.
Yeah, y'all are willing to move for it. That's fine with me.
We can.
I'm sorry, Will, I didn't mean to cut you off. My apologies.
It's okay. You guys are much more polite than most of the other cities, so.
All right, thanks, Will. And again, hopefully you heard the comments in the, anything. Are there any further questions that you guys might have this evening that you think we might be able to answer? Or did you pretty much hear the comments?
One thing I think I'd like to note that just so that everybody would be aware, if the new zoning code does come in, I don't have the answer yet. I have to look at it and potentially talk to Will as well. But if R3 is even going to be available at a later time.
Brian, the R3 single family, which is what they are requesting, is still available, even once that new code passes. The only thing that's doing the drastic change is if they were looking at like duplex or apartments.
Well, right.
As far as single family, it will remain the same.
Okay, and I just want to make them aware that they may potentially lose that, or they'll arguably may have to come in as R3 single family rather than just R3 if it gets tabled.
Yeah, they have asked for single family,
Okay.
R3 single family,
Okay.
so they'd be covered.
Thanks, Brian. All right, we have motioned and we have second to table the King property rezone for this evening, and everyone was okay with that and approved. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next item on the agenda. Will and the Kings, I appreciate you guys being with us this evening, and look forward to hearing from you in the future. Next on the agenda this evening is a conditional use. This is for conditional use 2107, 72 West Fireworks Tent at 11507 West Highway 72. It is C2, and it's just over 5.4 acres. And
You call somebody?
Just hang on.
somebody's not on mute, just to make sure that everybody's muted for me. I appreciate it. I'm not sure if that's you, Brian, or who that is. You're green though. Steve, are you on with us to just give us a brief overview of what you're looking to do at your place? Steve Mitchell, are you on?
I said he was on here. I am
Yes,
hunting. Oh, there he is.
can you? Yes, I'm sorry. The unmute didn't pop up. Yes, this is Steve Mitchell. My wife and I are owners of the subject property, which is where the store 72 West, and we also have a coffee trailer, the Wicked Bean. And our request tonight is to have a fireworks tent, both for the 4th of July and also for New Year's. I do have to tell you that I just received a call a couple of days ago, and apparently there's a fireworks shortage. So the vendor that I was going to have the tent has informed me that they are not able to get fireworks for a tent for the 4th of July. So all that said, my request is really now just for the new year. So the tent would go up sometime mid-December. They would sell fireworks, if it's my understanding, would be a few days before New Year's, and then the tent comes down immediately after New Year's Day.
We may not want to let this news get out, Jeff. A fireworks shortage.
Oh,
Yes.
they'll be panic buying already.
All right, so Steve, if I understand, you just want this for consideration for December, then through the end of January, based on the approval, understanding that if you want to do it next year, if there's not a shortage, you would have to come back. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. I understand, Chairman. And again, I apologize. I did inform staff this morning that I had just found out that they were not going to be able to. They literally said they wouldn't have enough fireworks to even have the tent. So again, I apologize. Yes, I understand that it's just for would be for New Year's, so it would be mid-December through as quick as they can get the tent down after the New Year. And then I do understand that the following year, 2022, I would make application for a new conditional use.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Let me see. Diane, is this you? Do you want to give us a brief staff overview, understanding that the dates have changed?
Yes, the date will change. Unfortunately, there seems to be a lack of fireworks. So everyone will be heartbroken. Maybe they could burn some of that toilet paper that everybody stocked up on last year. Maybe they could make fireworks from that. But Mr. Mitchell is asking for a temporary use of a fireworks tent. Of course, it was supposed to be from around June 15th to start getting it installed and removed by July 31st. Now he will just be looking at the mid-December to January 31st. And now, Steve, you just want to do this for the 1 year, or would you like to do a conditional use for 2 years instead of the 1 year? Because that is an option.
If I could do it for the 2 years, yes, I'd I would prefer to do it for the 2 years because they have said they would like to do it this year and next. I didn't know that was an option, but yes, I would.
Yes, that would save you a step of commission, of course, if that's,
Yes, that would be
acceptable
perfect.
value. The only planned outdoor structural change would be the installation of a 30-foot by 70-foot tent with removable sides and electricity provided from a temporary pole with power supplied from the site there. And a small recreational vehicle, I'm assuming this would still be the same whether it's December or July, will be located on the property for overnight caretaker of the tent and property. And the recreational vehicle will be entirely self-contained. And you can see on this drawing here, it is just to the west. I always have to think about it with that big curve there, just to the west of the tent. There will be up to 8 employees, including or in addition to the overnight caretaker. The hours of operation, of course, will be required that they do meet the City of Centerton's ordinances for the governance of the fireworks tents of when they can sell them. Any deliveries, hopefully in December, they will of course deliver the fireworks to get it all set up and restock as necessary. And customers will enter the site from Highway 72 and they will come in through the entrance where people normally would come into 72 West or the coffee trailer there. There will be 8 customer grassed parking spaces. Those are there just south of the tent. And of course, there's additional parking in the grass lot that they also have as part of their property. This is highway commercial. So the temporary use is a conditional use in a commercial zoned area. The surrounding zoning is it is R2 to the south. Directly to the west of their property, of course, is Rick's office over there, the streets department. To the north of them, on the other side of Highway 72, is Benton County. And diagonally across the street is R2, which is the Oak Tree subdivision over there. And then there's additional county to the east. It's not located in or adjacent to a floodplain. And of course, it's on Highway 72, which is a major arterial, 100 feet of right of way. It's going to change with that. And no permanent site modifications are being proposed. And the dates of operation, as far as for fireworks being sold within the City of Centerton Code, in the city corporate limits, they can be sold from July 20th. Let's try that again, June 20th through July 10th, and then from December 10th through January 5th. So those would be the only times that they could sell them. Of course, they could put the tent up earlier to get ready, but just no sales could occur outside of those dates. As far as special conditions, I said, as long as the Planning Commission approves, Steve, we can do that for 2 years. So that way, maybe you could actually get a 4th of July and New Year's holiday out of your tent. And setback requirements, again, this is just temporary, but he is outside of the, required setbacks for any permanent structures. Will not lead a large-scale development plan because nothing's being changed. So most of it are just the general conditions that we typically have with our conditional use permits. Of course, he will have to get licensing from the Arkansas State Police, and the use permit for the city, of course, is the conditional use permit, which is what we are looking at now. And also he will need a fire inspection prior to the use of the fireworks tent. And that's all that I have.
All right, thanks, Diane. Let's go ahead and open up to the public. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing for the conditional use 2107 for the 72 West fireworks tent.
This is Ben. I'll make a
Joey.
motion
Go ahead.
to open public hearing for 2107 72 West fireworks tent.
This is Joey. I'll second.
Motion and a second to open the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? All right, let's go ahead and open it up to the public. If anyone wishes to speak, again, there's two ways. You can either raise your hand if you're virtual, or you can do *9 if you called in or joined us by phone. So with that, Diane, is there anyone that wishes to speak?
I could get my microphone to unmute. I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, second call for anyone that wishes to speak on the conditional use 2107 for 72 West fireworks.
There are no hands raised.
And third and final call.
Again, there are no hands raised.
All right, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Joey, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Ben. I'll second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? All right. Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners? I mean, I'm okay with the 2 years unless someone is not okay with the 2 years. Of course, you know, it is always subject to review, as is, you know, any other conditional use that we put in there. Any other comments or questions from any of the commissioners?
No, I'd like to just leave it open too this year in case something changes. I don't know why we wouldn't.
Yeah, and I think if it goes 2 years, Joey, I think that it does leave it open for that. So, Steve, if you do happen to find somebody, you know, this year you find some extra fireworks, then it would actually, I think, you know, based on the application, it would be okay this year, you know, understanding that it would be good for 2 years from the day that we approve it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
If there are no other questions or comments from any of the commissioners, I would entertain a motion for the conditional use 2107. Again, it's 72 West fireworks tent for 2 years.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve conditional use 2107, the 72 West fireworks tent for 2 years with the dates stated in the request.
John, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Todd, if you'll do a roll call since it was public for me.
Sure. Tony Davis,
Yes.
Amber Beal,
Yes.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Craig Langford,
Yes.
and Jeff Seifarth.
Yes, as well. Thanks, Steve. Good luck. Hopefully you'll actually find some fireworks this year.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thanks. All right. Next on the agenda is also public hearing. This is for PUD 2102, the watercolor multifamily PUD amendment for phase 3 at 1709 East Centerton Boulevard. As a reminder, it's R3 multifamily PUD. It's 18.07 acres, 376 units. And Diane, I believe this is still you. Is the applicant on to give us just a brief overview?
Yes, I believe that I saw Reed Hill on here with Crafton Toll.
Hey, Reed, you want to give us a brief overview? Reed, are you still with us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Oh,
Yeah, getting the feedback. You might have to either turn down a microphone or something, but yeah, just give us a brief overview of what you're asking for this evening. I think we lost you all together, Reed. Reed, did we lose you?
I think we did.
It looks like he's connecting to audio, so if we could just
Okay.
give him a second to try to sort out.
Patience.
I'm back.
Yes, sir.
Yay.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Yes, sir. As you said, we're here to amend the current PUD, and more specifically, the portion of the PUD that we're asking to amend is the western setback of 50 feet. We're requesting that to be a 40-foot setback instead. I believe that, the intent of these larger setbacks on the interior property lines, especially with these taller buildings, is a privacy and a buffer. But as you can see on the overall site plan, this phase 3 setback in question is adjacent to the back of the storage unit as well as their detention facility. So there's not really a whole lot to consider as far as privacy in this situation. We'll be meeting all the other requirements of the existing PUD, so this is the only portion that we're asking to amend.
All right, thanks, Reed. Diane, do you want to give us a staff overview?
Yes, the original PUD was first done, I believe, in 2016, and then they amended it in 2018 when they started to consider phase 2. So this will be an amendment for phase 3. So then this is their final phase also, but they are proposing to add an additional building because they did purchase the property to the west that backs up to the storage units. They did purchase that a couple years ago, so they do have more acreage in which to put an additional structure. And this structure, as it does overhang the 50-foot building setback, so they are asking for 40 feet. It does not change their current PUD. Allows for density of up to 22 units per acre. Even with this additional building, they'll be below that. They'll be at, I believe, 20 units per acre. So that's not something they would have to change. They're just requesting a change to that building setback for building 18. And they're not changing this, but just so that you know, also perimeter apartment buildings are limited to 2 stories and 16 units per building, with interior and westerly phase 2 and 3 apartments buildings being limited to the 3 stories and 24 units per building. So this one that they have proposed here is a 3-story, and as Reed did note, it is right next to the storage units, and the property directly to the south of this building are the duplexes that are part of Kimmel Ridge phase 2, or nope, phase 1. And it will still be, more than 50 feet away from that adjacent property right there. So that's basically what they were wanting to do. The only comments that were outstanding for the PUD were from the building department, and they're pretty much just statements that, of course, he has to comply with the current code to submit their plans to building when they have them ready to go. And he had concerns about this detention pond, but I do believe that on their resubmittal, this detention pond is no longer here. So, and that was kind of one of the reasons where we're having issues with the development portion of this for phase 3. But the PUD was good to go this evening.
All right, thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
Let's go ahead and open it up to the public. So with that, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing for PUD 2102, the watercolor multifamily PUD amendment.
This is Craig. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
This is Ben. I'll second.
Motion and a second to open the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? All right. Again, there's 2 ways to join if you have a question or a comment. The first one is to do the raise your hand if you join virtually, or you can press *9 or *9, and that will raise your hand as well. So with that, Diane, is there anyone that wishes to speak?
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, second call for anyone that wishes to speak in regards to the PUD 2102 amendment.
There are no hands raised.
And we'll do a third and final call.
There are no hands raised.
All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Craig. I'll second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there anyone that's opposed? All right. Any comments or questions from any of the commissioners in regards to the amendment request for the watercolor for phase 3? If there are no comments or questions, then I would entertain a motion for PUD 2102, the watercolor multifamily, the PUD amendment for phase 3 as presented.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve PUD 2102, the amendment to the previously approved PUD, which is a 10-foot reduction in the side yard setback for the third phase.
This is Tony. I second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Todd, if you'll do a roll call for me as well, please.
Tony Davis,
Yes.
Amber Beal,
Yes.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Craig Langford,
Yes.
and Jeff Seifarth.
And I'm a yes as well.
I think Amber's dog voted yes as well.
Yeah, she did indeed.
I mean, surely nobody's mowing the yard this late, so.
No, she's just a psycho.
Great memory.
Reed, thank you. We appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, next on the agenda this evening is Development 2108, the Christian Life Center of Centerton. This is Gamble, south of Seba. It's R3 and it is 2.8 acres. And Donna, I think this is your turn. Is the developer here to give us an overview?
Yes, he is. Dirk, you should be able to speak now.
Hey, Dirk, do you want to give us an overview? Dirk, are you there? You may have to unmute. Dirk, are you with us? Donna,
Looks
why
like he may be having some technical difficulties as well. I do see him unmuting and muting.
okay. Well, I'm going to let Donna go ahead, and then if we get Dirk here in a little bit, we'll go on. But Donna, why don't you go ahead and give us a staff overview?
All right. So this one is part of Christian Life Center. You all previously saw this one as part of a track split. It is directly north of the Valley Oaks subdivision. The conditional use approval for religious facilities was approved in December of last year. And so we are now seeing the development request. So the proposal is now in front of you for the large scale development, including landscaping and site lighting. Gamble Road is a major collector with 80 foot of right of way required. The major collectors do have 10-foot side paths on the master trail plan. We currently have a 5-foot sidewalk shown on the plans. We have been having staff discussions with Dirk regarding street improvements, and staff, we haven't quite had a consensus yet on what we're going to do. So we are gonna have to come back in front of you all with a Jason Street agreement.
No.
Hi, Dirk.
You got me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right, sweet deal.
Yeah, I hate to have you mute, but if you'll just let Donna go ahead and finish from a staff perspective,
I don't even know what I did. Okay, yep.
we'll keep going, okay?
All right. So we're going to have to come back to talk about adjacent street improvements on a later meeting is the general gist of it. But we've been talking with Dirk, and we're going to get those worked out. Right-of-way dedication is shown on the plans. There was 30-foot dedicated in the track split. There's going to be an additional 10-foot dedicated here. That will bring us up to the 40-foot that we have on the master street plan, and then we will be good. The site access, it's all off of Gamble Road, so we will be fine with that. And we meet the parking requirements. Sorry guys, my cat is being a little problematic. And all of the utilities are either directly on the site or are accessible from Valley Oaks directly to the south. We did have a drainage question. Really, that can be answered once we figure out what exactly is going on with adjacent street improvements, whether or not that is going to change. We did have a question on trash management, whether curbside pickup was going to be sufficient, or if we were going to need a dumpster because it is a larger building. We did also have a question regarding lighting, because the current plan does not propose any site lighting. There is no evening service being proposed, but it does get dark fairly early during winter. So we were concerned that no site lighting being proposed would not be sufficient for the amount of space that there is. The landscaping plan has received staff approval. The conditional use request did have a requirement for some screening, which has been completed. There is a note on the PC report regarding comprehensive plan implementation. So we've got pedestrian infrastructure, there's landscaping here, and we've got infill with the surrounding subdivisions. If you have any questions, let me know. And Dirk can take it away from here.
Thanks, Donna. I'm going to kind of guide it a little bit, Dirk, if you're okay with that, because
That's fine.
How many folks do you plan on attending your services? Do you have an estimate right now?
225.
Okay. And that'll be consistently like one service per week, or do you think that'll be multiple services?
It's multiple services one day a week. I think they have 2 morning services.
Okay.
On Sunday.
Okay. So you understand the implication as well from a lighting perspective.
Yeah, I do understand it, and I asked the owner about that, and they just kept saying the same thing. We don't want evening services. We don't feel the need for the light. Just for added input, the development to our south is Valley Oak subdivision, and so there are 2 street lights to the south of us going in and 2 street lights to the west of us going in. So there is going to be ambient light of 4 street lights surrounding this property. That may help a little bit, but again, They just said they didn't want to have evening services, so they didn't want to install the light fixtures. And then I talked to Lorraine about this. You know, if they would ever want to come back and do that, obviously that would have to be brought forth to you guys, and so you would approve the light fixtures. But they're just saying they didn't want to put the site lighting in.
Okay. I have a concern about the trash management, and I was just trying to do some quick math, and I don't know what the trash service offers as far as how they would treat a facility like this, if they would treat it as a commercial or if they would treat it as a residential. And I just don't know the answer to that, but 225 people in my mind potentially creates a little bit more than one or two trash cans. And I don't know if you have any input on that or any discussion, if you had any discussion with them on that.
I did. And so the church has no kitchen in it. And so the kitchen is the primary producer of trash for a facility. So the fact that they're just having services, the bulk of their trash is going to be when a cleaning service would clean it and the programs being dropped off after a service. And so the church is fully aware and feels the need that street curbside trash service is fine. And that's doable. The cans just roll to the curb just like it would if it was a residence. With a limited amount of trash being produced, they didn't feel the need for the dumpster enclosure, the dumpster at all.
Okay.
I can tell you from our church is to the north up there. We have about 1,200 people that attend on multiple services on Sunday. We have a small dumpster at ours, and that is plenty for what we do. Most of our trash comes either from restroom use or youth activities.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
I will say the site lighting thing, safety and security has been an issue. I know for us, I'm over the building, our church building up there, and I know the lighting is helpful for security purposes.
Todd, I was going to bring that up as well. I was thinking about security as well at nighttime. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this property, there was suggestion when they first came for rezone months ago that they wanted to put a baseball field or a soccer field behind here eventually in that area, in that empty space, if I'm not mistaken. That would bode for some lighting as well, if that was still the intent.
Okay. Well, let's, any other comments or questions from any of the commissioners before we opened up to the public?
So the landscape screening on the north, it looks like the one home's, pretty well covered. I believe the smaller trees that are darker are a cedar, so an evergreen. My concern's with the lot to the west, because it is 2 single-family lots, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it is. Dirk, what's the spacing on those larger trees that you have going in the northwest corner?
Sure, those are about every 50 feet, and they are large evergreens as well. And those homes also, the 2 homes right there have existing wood privacy fence. Well, so does the neighbor directly to the north. It was just the facility was so much closer to that one particular home is why I screened it so heavily there. And it's really what I thought we were screening all along.
Yeah. I just want to bring that up. It could be adequate. If I was that homeowner, I probably wouldn't think it was adequate to the west, but we can discuss that.
Yeah, I'm just not really sure what we're screening. It's a 1-story facility. The neighborhood to our north has existing wood privacy fences. The neighborhood to the south and to the west will have privacy fences going in. A church facility, I've lived next to a church facility before. It seems to me that it's more of a park-like setting. It's not something that you typically would even want to screen. The openness is, in my benefit, my opinion, the nice thing about living next to a church is that you have this open green. I'm not opposed to putting more screening. I don't know that I understand the intent of it and what we're trying to achieve.
Well, it looks, yeah, so those homes sit quite a bit higher than your church. So while the fence is good, I still imagine they might be able to see over. Dirk, you've been around long enough. You know the screening requirements between residential and a commercial use, or I know this might not be a full-blown commercial use, but Sunday morning with 225 people coming in there, as much privacy as I could have is probably better.
Well, I do disagree with the commercial use. I don't think it's commercial in any form or fashion. I do agree that it has cars, and there would be cars in that parking lot. But again, to me, the bigger concern is the screening of the neighbors, the church seeing the neighbors rather than the neighbors seeing the church.
I was thinking more, not more from a visual perspective, but a noise pollution type of perspective, where if I'm a neighbor, I may not want to hear the music or the sound of vehicles, horns and things like that. I'm just one concern there, not necessarily visual, but from a noise perspective.
Just something to consider, Dirk. I'm going to go ahead and move us forward with opening up the public hearing in case anyone wishes to speak. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to open the public hearing for 2108, the Christian Life Center of Centerton.
This is Ben. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing for 2108.
Joey, I'll second.
Motion and second to open the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? All right. Again, as a reminder, there's two ways to join if you wish to speak or have any comments or questions in regards to Development 2108. Again, this is the Christian Life Center of Centerton. You can either raise your hand on the bottom of your screen if you join virtually, or you can press *9 if you joined by phone. And so with that, I don't know, Donna, if you're going to control it, or if anyone, whoever on staff, is there anyone that wishes to speak?
There's a Johnny Baker.
Hey, Johnny.
Hello, this is Johnny Baker. I'm the builder for this project. I just want to mention two items. Number one, the area of landscape screening that we're referring to, there is a berm, about a 3.5 or 4 foot berm that's already there that we intend to leave. So we'll be putting the trees on top of the berm. We may even use some of the existing soils there to create, to make the berm a little bit more uniform in that area, just for a matter of clarification. Secondly, it's our desire from the lighting standpoint, it's our desire to put wall backs on the building and not parking lights or light poles in the parking lot. We would like to put wall packs on the building that shine down, not out. It'll give that area some good lighting. And then thirdly, we will not be putting in a soccer field or any kind of professional or even public field back in that green space. In our original meeting in December, we simply made the comment that we'd like to be able to use that for family activity area, like soccer games, softball games, that sort of thing. As the new subdivision is being built, it's becoming more and more obvious that green space is going to be somewhat limited. I apologize for the beautiful voice, but that's all I had input, and happy to answer any other questions as well.
All right, Johnny, I appreciate it. Thank you. I think that was Lorraine that had said Johnny wanted to speak. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, so we'll do a second call then for the Development 2108, the Christian Life Center of Centerton, if anyone wishes to speak. And Lorraine, if there's no one, then we'll do a third and final call for anyone that wishes to speak in regards to the Development 2108, the Christian Life Center of Centerton.
There is no one with their hand raised.
Okay, so with that, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Joey, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Ben, I'll second.
Motion and a couple seconds to close the public hearing. Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you guys. Johnny, I appreciate your input on the lighting. I guess what I would say then, and Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, but if they're going to introduce lighting to the building, then they would have to submit to you how those are going to portray on the property. Is that correct?
We would need to see lighting information, yes.
Okay.
We have had other, this is a single story, but we have had some that have done the wall packs, and they are all variable on how the direction of those lights and so forth. So definitely a photometric plan. I just do also want to bring up a couple of points. I know that we did, one is on Seba Road, the youth athletic center. And we limited the lighting on that because of the wall packs, and it's very dark. So just for safety, I would really want to encourage the church to consider some parking lot lights. If you do choose to do them after this is done and the paving, then you have the paving that you've got to cut through to get those lights installed. So just food for thought.
All right, thanks, Lorraine. Any comments or questions from any of the commissioners? So just a few things that we need clarification on that I made note of. Is anyone opposed to the curbside trash pickup? Okay, so Donna, we're okay with the curbside pickup on trash. Lighting, as Johnny shared with us, their intention would be to do some wall pack. If that's the case, Johnny, just for clarification, they would need the photometric for approval from a staff perspective. Dirk, I know that you heard some of the discussion on landscaping, and I know that Johnny, you also shared there's some berms back there that may help with that. I think that was the only couple of pieces that we needed clarification on. If there's no other comments from any of the staff or any of the commissioners, then I would entertain a motion for Development 2108, the Christian Life Center of Centerton at Gamble, just south of Seba.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve Development 2108 Christian Life Center. Something for discussion. Do we want to bring it back for the street improvements, or is that something staff can handle?
Donna or Rick or even Lorraine, what are your thoughts on, well, we need to see it again?
The planning commission is responsible for approval of any adjacent street improvements or agreements.
Yeah, we could approve it contingent on your review.
I would prefer that it come to the planning commission. So that we
Okay,
have
then I'll
your-
keep my
your
motion just
approval.
how it was.
It's John, I'll second pending that approval.
We have a motion and we have a second. Todd, if you'll do a roll call for me, since this was our last public hearing.
Tony Davis,
Yes.
Amber Beal,
Yes.
Joey Engel,
Yes.
Ben Lewis,
Yes.
John Sessoms,
Yes.
Craig Langford,
Yes.
and Jeff Seifarth.
And Jeff's a yes as well. All right, thanks Dirk and Johnny on that. Next on the agenda this evening is subdivision 1908, the Barrington Place final plat. This is at Wolverine Drive, north of Seba Road. As a reminder, it's R2 single family, just over 25 acres, 114 single family lots. And Diane, I believe we're back to you. Is Devin or Patrick on to give us just a quick overview?
Anybody need a restroom break or anything?
They're both on there.
Not anybody. You guys floating all right?
And we got momentum going, Todd. I hate to.
I'm trying to stop that. We're 3 hours plus in.
Patrick is on the call and looks like he's available to speak.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Hey, Patrick, just a brief overview. What you're requesting?
Yes, sir. This is Patrick with Morrison Shipley. Sound like your summary had it pretty well wrapped up. Honestly, it's 114 lots. They're finishing up construction. We just had inspection this past Friday. It went well. I think all we're waiting on is hard copies for the closeout documents and some bonds, which I've seen copies this morning. We're just waiting on the hard copies. So we're just taking the final steps to get this thing wrapped up and filed a record.
All right, thanks, Patrick. Diane?
Yes, this is Barrington Place final plat. This property is located directly behind, south, I suppose, of Bentonville West High School. And I have no idea why in the GIS they have a road coming all the way down the east side, because that does not exist. So the GIS folks will have to fix that. It is 25.07 acres. It's zoned R3 single family residential. And they have submitted their final plat and record drawings. They have both been accepted by staff. We have received their covenants, and I do believe that those have been approved. Brian looked at those and said he didn't have any concerns with their most recent submittal, so looks like those are good to go. As far as warranty bonds, we do not have them in hand as of yet, but they do have until the council meeting next week to do that. They have provided estimates that have been approved by Public Works and also by Water and Sewer. They have a streets bond. Of course, that's 100% for 2 years. That's $432,203. Drainage is also at 100% for 2 years. And that one is $284,560.50. And for the water and sewer, these are 50% for 1 year. The full amount is $599,822.25. And half of that, of course, would be $299,911.13. Don't want to forget those 13 cents. So those have been approved by staff. We are just waiting on the actual bonds to be submitted to the city. And they do also have a completion bond. This is for backfill behind the curb, and we did kind of, and vegetation right there behind the right of way, which actually we talked about when we were there on site, that it was probably good they didn't have it there, because it would have all been in the street with all the rain we've had. And they do have some sodding repairs in the ponds that have to be done from the vast quantities of rain we had one day. A lot of the sod decided to be in the bottom of the pond. So they do have to fix that. And they are providing a completion bond of $27,099.25 for that. And that has been approved by staff. They did have waivers back when this was preliminary approved, and they were approved. The subdivision requirement to provide a 20-foot utility easement, that was changed. That waiver was approved, and the detention ponds are supposed to have 10 feet of access around the detention basin. That was also waived for this particular property. We have been out to the site. They have just very minor things to fix. One of the larger things is to make sure that they get the riprap pads in by the flared end sections in the detention pond. Of course, right now they can't get in there or they will sink their equipment in the bottom of the pond. And I don't think they want to go quite with that. They have dedicated right-of-way all along Wolverine and have completed their section of Wolverine. The drainage report has been approved by staff. They do have a fire access on the side that until the property south of them is developed, so they can have an additional access out of the subdivision. They do have a temporary fire access here to go onto the city, nope, not the city, the Bentonville West property. There is a gate there, and they have installed a Knox lock, and I believe that the fire department is all good with that currently. Their site looks good, just very minor little things that needed to be repaired, and based on the information available, we do find the plat to be generally in conformance with the Centerton Municipal Code, contingent on any remaining staff comments.
Thank you, Diane. Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners? If there are no comments, then I would entertain a motion for subdivision 1908, the Barrington Place final plat.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to approve subdivision 1908, Barrington Place final plat.
John, I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is anyone opposed? All right. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick, as well. And good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda this evening is Development 2106, the watercolor multifamily phase 3 at 1709 East Centerton Boulevard. Diane, I understand there may be a request on this.
Yes, staff would like to request that this be tabled until probably just the June 15th meeting to give engineering a chance to review the second submittal of this development to make sure that the drainage questions that engineering had have been solved. And the developer and the engineer for the project have been notified of this, so they are aware.
Okay. Thank you, Diane. Per staff's request, they're requesting this be tabled this evening to the next meeting. And so with that, I would entertain a motion to table per staff's request.
This is Joey. I'll make a motion to table development 21-06.
This is Greg. I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you, Diane, for that. All right, other business, just FYI, Planning Commissioner reappointment. Myself, Jerry, and Tony all agreed to remain, and so our terms will go before the, I believe we're submitted by the mayor and then approved by the council, I believe, with a term that will end on June 30th of 2024. With the guidance from the planning commissioners, we would like to set a public hearing for amendments to the master street plan. We did cover some of those at our work session. And so With that, I would entertain a motion to, I guess we need a motion to, for staff, looking at the future agendas, I would say we go out to at least the middle, possibly the 20th of July for that. I know that our next two meetings, including the one, I believe it's on the 6th, is rather full. So my recommendation would be that we push that out until I think it's the 20th meeting. Any input from any of the commissioners on that? If there is not, then let's go ahead and make a motion for the staff to set that public hearing.
This is John. I'll make a motion for staff to set a public hearing for the Master Street Plan amendments applicable to the calendar.
This is Ben. I second.
All right, motion is second. Is anyone opposed? All right, thank you guys. I want to have a brief XNA overlay discussion. I know that we discussed this at our work session, and we certainly heard from not only the airport, we also heard from some residents, and so and some discussion in regards to, you know, what is the city responsible for, if you will. And so there were, you know, a couple of options that were thrown out there. You know, one being, gosh, this whole overlay district, which is what Bentonville has, or possibly with some sort of disclosure or, you know, something else in regards to that, so that, you know, anybody that it would be purchasing out there, you know, would understand that they are in the path of the airport. So any further discussion on that? I know we went rather long that night. We're a little late tonight, but you know, we need to finalize this and, you know, potentially put it as a you know, as a discussion point for us to make some decisions on the overlay, you know, district, I'll call it, but, you know, any sort of overlay around XNA. Any thoughts or comments on that?
I mean, I personally think it's a good idea, just so those homeowners are aware of where they're buying and, you know, of the potential. But how we get there, I'm not 100% sure. But, you know, we talked about, you know, putting a stamp on a plat. We're actually filing something. But I think it's a good idea to make them aware, just to protect the city.
Mr. Rabel, are you still with us this evening? I don't know if you had a chance to do any research on that or any guidance from you in regards to that.
Well, I guess I'll just kind of reiterate what I said at the meeting, that, I mean, again, we're looking, you know, for the general well-being of the public. And it's my legal opinion that it's better that we put together something and do something. Now, I know apparently I'm kind of the minority when it comes to a lot of the city staff. But again, I'm looking at trying to mitigate any potential for litigation against the city and think that it would be beneficial to us.
Okay. So, and I appreciate that, Brian. I guess what I need then, so that we're not having a long discussion on it, from what I understood, there were really three potential options that we should consider, I guess. You know, one, this whole overlay. Two would be this stamp, I guess, and then maybe a third being a disclosure. Do I understand that correctly? Whether that's from Brian or Lorraine, or maybe even Nicole.
I would say I think either put a stamp on the plat or an overlay district. I'm not aware of any disclosure, and again, we wouldn't be part of that. And I don't think that we could require that, because that's between property owners buying and selling.
So if we, as a commission, decide to do a stamp versus an overlay, do we need to have anything open to the public, or is that something that we can put in place via some sort of code? What are your thoughts on that? Because it's just a notification, right?
Well, we're talking about putting something on the plant, so I think that would go, through the in the development process when we're as a requirement for final submittal of the plant. If we're putting language with regards to the abrogation easement on it, if we're doing an overlay, yeah, we're going to have a hearing on it.
Okay, so
Where the overlay district comes in is it basically designates the area of land that would need that plat notification or whatever the requirements are in that district. The overlay district is a map overlay, so it'll tell us, the properties that district applies to, and so no matter what is put within those requirements, if it's just the plat notice, if it's the abrogation easement, or it's the sound attenuation, I think the overlay district is what tells us what properties apply. Is that your understanding, Lorene and Brian?
That sounds correct.
Yes, and anything that's the overlay would be in the zoning. I would say it would be in the zoning code as requirements for the zoning code.
So if that's the case, then, and we use the overlay that exists today, understanding that it was provided by Bentonville, is that something that we can use, or do we need to consider doing something on our own that would be an overlay there?
Jeff, I think it's actually provided by the FAA, right?
I think that Bentonville did the one that exists today.
Bentonville did the code, the overlay district, but the map was provided by the XNA or FAA. XNA provided the map for us, and it will be this, I understand, it's going to be the same map, just our code language will be.
Yeah, that was the way I understood that too, Jeff. The FAA makes those overlays for every airport. And then it's up to the city to write code around that overlay.
So then I'm going to throw something else out there. They only provided an overlay for one runway, and they actually have 2 runways that exist out there that would potentially take that overlay farther west, because the second runway, 17 and 35, I believe, is actually to the west. And it was not part of that original, because I think that original exists before they created the second runway.
So is there an updated FAA overlay for XNA?
I don't believe that there is, just based on my conversations with them. It is so speculative at this point, is when that additional runway will be designed and put in. Right.
Brian, it exists today. There are 2 north-south runways that exist. So this one that's on the screen right now is written for 16 and 34. But today, west of this 16 and 34, there exists a runway 17 and 35 that's probably, what is that runway? Probably 40 feet to the center line is probably 40 feet, maybe 50 feet west, which would change this path potentially.
Jeff, that's odd, because if you look, the source says Google Maps 2021. So I wonder why that wasn't included.
I mean, today 17 and 35 is closed, but if for whatever reason they decided to use it, it's available for use, and would have the similar published approaches from the north and from the south as far as departures and arrivals.
Yeah, I see what you mean. This would basically expand this overlay west significantly.
Are they both there? I mean, looking at it, it looks like they're side by side. Looks like it accounts for 2, Jeff, because we're looking at the 30,000 foot view.
I think we need to ask them and get clarification on that, because and the only reason that I have any doubt at all, Todd, is that the threes that are north and south line up with what existed before. And so it may shift it. I think we need to ask for clarification
They
from
may
them.
expand that to the west.
I think we need to ask for clarification.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that from a commission perspective, we support looking at this and, putting in place whatever we need to put in place, in order to, to Brian's point, I believe, protect, the city. And so I would like to get some further clarification around, is there any impact because they have two runways, the 1.7 and 3.5 versus the 1.6 and 3.4. And I do understand that they're closed, or it's closed today, but it's available for use if it was necessary.
Okay. Yes, we will get with them and check and see if there's something for the other runway too. And I did find it interesting. I did see things on Facebook, which I'm rarely on there, but regarding, I guess, them jets flying over and everyone was hearing them in town. So I can just imagine it was very close.
Yeah, I think we need to, maybe Jeff, we need to expedite this a little bit as we've seen development go out that way more and more, right? So we need to probably head it off and get ahead of it, put something out.
So, full transparency here, those rezones for the properties are coming up in the first meeting of July, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so.
Actually, one is, I showed June 15th.
Yes,
correct?
that's correct, Lori. The England property is June 15th.
And there
And
was
the
already
Caulfield.
one approved, right? A couple city councils ago that was the edge of that zone 2, correct?
We kept the industrial in that corner where it's 3.
We did keep the industrial in that corner. Okay.
So are we going to be supporting the different construction types as well with the sound attenuation?
I guess, well, the thing would be only if it's in 3 that those need to happen. Is that correct?
No, I think.
Or 4 would be included in that.
Yeah, I think 3, you're not supposed to have anything in there, like as far as single family.
Correct. So it would just be in the 4.
Yeah. And then is that retroactive on the rezoning that already went through? There's a lot of questions.
I don't think it can be.
Right.
So the overlay district would put requirements on development. And so when the plat comes through, if the requirement is to place a note on a plat, they do that at the time of a final plat. Is that your understanding, Lorene?
That's what I would do.
So if it were home construction related, that wouldn't go until building permit was pulled, right?
No.
Well, I don't know that where we. You
No,
mean
the
like
plat
construction to a
just creates
different
the
level?
lots, Jeff.
And that depends on how heavy you guys want to go with the code on that.
And keep in mind, you're going to get a lot of pushback.
Of requiring the note on the plat, that if they are in that zone 4, that they have a note on the plat.
That's like this. Go ahead, Julie.
I was just saying, I don't think anything's set in stone, Lorraine. I think we're still discussing it. I understand everybody's concerns. We did have the council member that I believe she was a council member. She was in there, said her daughter lived in zone 4 and she was at her home and, didn't notice anything. And then just later after she said that, we looked and they did require the sound attenuation in their homes. Obviously it's it's doable, and I understand the concern from the property owner. I understand the concern from the city. You know, I think in the best interest of the city, that's something we should think about.
So the simplest and the least imposed, if you will, would simply be a stamp on the plat. Is that the way that I understand it? Without the additional around building and noise and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And Brian, what kind of liability does that place on us? Does that resolve us
Well,
of any liability at that point?
It's really hard to perceive what, if any, litigation would happen. I think at the very least that we would want developers to give the Avic Nation easement and require that to be, put on the plat so that these folks know what's going on. But I mean, my conversation with the airport folks is, I mean, yeah, there's fuel and everything else that's, going to be dumped a little bit. Of course, most of it vaporizes or whatnot, but there's just a variety of different things that can happen. And a creative lawyer could potentially get something. And the question becomes whether or not the city is ultimately liable. I think that's great, but I certainly think that we can be a defendant without doing these things, and that could cost the city, a substantial sum of money defending a bunch of litigation, because I don't think that would necessarily be frivolous litigation, but I would hope that we would still prevail. Does that help at all?
Kind of. I mean,
That's a good.
That was a full lawyer right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good lawyer presentation right there. I guess my question was more geared towards just the sound items, with it being a safety level and that type of deal.
I think we have a duty to potential residents, and we have been made aware of some of these things, and there's of course different opinions with regards to this. So ultimately you guys will have to make a determination of what is there. To me, it just seems a lot safer to add those things, but I know there's a lot of staff and council members that will likely turn this down as well, saying that it is not an issue.
Well, at the end of the day, I'm the one that has to live with what I say and the consequences of it. And I think just from a safety perspective, I don't know why we wouldn't go that route. Obviously, the only study that we have is Bentonville. There's homes built within this in Bentonville. Obviously, it's not a deal killer per se. It can be done, and we have proof that it is done. So like Brian said, I think we have the responsibility for the future residents to discuss it, and I would be in support of it.
So Lorraine, I know Nicole's leaving, so not that I don't care for her opinion, but do you think there is, I mean, the 15th is probably way too quick to try to do something in 2 weeks. Do you think? I thought so.
Yes, we are already
Lorraine.
buried, but
so
we'll put it on the list and we'll get something to you, and then we can go from there as far as setting a public hearing and so forth. But unless Brian has time to work on a code or something.
Any thoughts about looking at other cities like Rogers has an airport, Fayetteville's got an airport, just to kind of see what those communities and council, legal counsel in those communities, maybe looking at those as well?
That being apples to apples, because that's more of a municipal airport, correct?
Maybe we can look to see what they have in Fort Smith, because that's the only thing that I can think of that would be sort of similar as far.
Joplin, Fort Smith.
Yeah, well, thank you. I didn't know there was one in Joplin.
Yeah, I was going to recommend Joplin's got a similar airport.
Thank you. I did not know that.
And very similar in the fact they're away, you know. So yeah, those might be two just to look at, and that's a good suggestion, Todd. So what I would say, back to Joey's original, I think it was Joey that mentioned some of these are coming up. I mean, it can be one of our contingencies, right? I mean, or part of the discussion is the fact that we have this open discussion in regards to the overlay district in which these, you know, these particular parcels are in. And, you know, based on that, you know, it could be part of that development. And I think it would have to be noted on there if we wanted it to be enforceable, you know, after the fact, if we can't get it completed by the 15th.
Well, yeah, Jeff, I think we have to disclose that, but on the flip side, I'm not any of these requirements that we decide to do or not do, I'm not sure it reflects in the rezoning other than the area in zone 3 that already got approved after we denied it. So I'm not sure any of that's actually applicable to the rezoning, but I do think we need to disclose that, make everybody aware. You know, the one item that we talked about, the stamp on the plat, that would come, you know, at the final plat, which is at least a year down the road, if not longer. And then any building requirements, I imagine, would come with the building permit. So
we haven't approved any development plans for those areas.
yeah, that was my point. We're just doing the rezoning right now. Does that make sense, Joe?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
I just think it leaves it still leaves questions open for the developers.
Yeah, it does. 100%.
Which I think there's nothing wrong with that. In the fact that we have, you know, given the staff and Brian a little bit of guidance to bring us back some information, then I think we're okay.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? I think, Lorraine, we do want to move forward and continue to have discussions. And so we'll keep it as an open item.
Okay.
From an announcement perspective, I know a couple of you have asked, you know, when we will potentially go in person. So I talked to the mayor today, and our intent would to be in person on July 20th. Is our potential, unless something crazy happens between now and then. Our intent would go to be in person at City Hall on the 20th. If any of you feel uncomfortable with that, please let me know. My guidance to the mayor was I've seen all of you in a meeting setting at one time or another in the last month. So our intent would be to gather at City Hall in person. So if you have a concern with that, please, you know, drop me an email or, you know, give me a shout and then let me know. But our intention would be July 20th.
Will there be Dairy Queen?
Not by then, no.
It didn't happen when we were at the admin building. And it
I was promised the Blizzard.
You're in charge of that, John. Okay.
I think you'll have to settle for a McFlurry.
All right.
We know what's going to happen. It's better to drive to Bentonville, John. So our next planning commission meeting is on June 15th. Again, if you can't be here, let us know. The next council meeting is 6/8. There's a joint work session, I think, that's scheduled for the 24th. And there is a tech review meeting on 7/1. Lorraine, it's 9:45. Anything else from staff?
I don't have anything except that I bet we're all ready to go home.
So I would just like to, you know, publicly thank Nicole. This is her last meeting with us for the City of Centerton.
Oh, no.
So thank you, Nicole, for everything that you've done for us. And we'll be looking to you for assistance from a regional perspective. So don't forget about us our little town of Centerton. So again, thank you.
Thank you. How could I ever forget about you all? It really has been a pleasure working with and for you guys, and I'm impressed with the good and thoughtful work that you guys do as a body, and just want to encourage you to keep up the good work, and
Nicole,
we'll
you're
see you
leaving.
around.
You don't have to suck up. You're already leaving.
Well, that just means it's genuine. It's not a suck up, because I don't have to do it. I could just say peace. But I do. I appreciate you, all the work you guys do.
It's been awesome.
Thanks.
All right.
We're gonna miss you.
And if nobody has anything else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
This is Craig. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Joey, I'll second.
All right, motion to adjourn in a second. Is anyone opposed? Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of the week.
Those are awful.